Chapter 308. Is this the power of the heaven and earth spirit fire? Bai Ling's eyes were filled with shock as she stared at the fire lotus that instantly covered the entire ancient hall. Her pretty face was completely drained of blood. She finally understood why Brother Ling Xiao hated this ancient, powerful cultivator so much, but did not attack him. It turned out that his body had merged with a spirit fire. The heaven and earth spirit fire was one of the powers closest to the origin. This kind of power contained extreme destruction. It was not something that ordinary people could withstand. Moreover, this ancient, powerful cultivator might have been at a very high level when he was alive, but Lin Shi's cultivation was only at the Paong realm. To be able to merge with the spirit fire with his body, it was obvious that this ancient, powerful cultivator had some extraordinary means. Terrifying. This might be the most terrifying opponent that Bai Ling had ever seen in her life. Even if she had honed her killing skills since she was young, she still did not dare to act rashly at this moment. She only had one chance. Once she was exposed, she might not even have the chance to escape. After all, Lin Shi had set up a barrier at the entrance of the ancient palace. Suddenly, Bai Ling felt a little regretful. She should have listened to Brother Ling Xiao and waited for him to deal with Lin Shi together. Buzz! A deafening buzz suddenly sounded. Lin Shi waved his hand, and the apocalyptic fire lotus fell from the sky and smashed toward the demon snake. Roar! At this moment, the demon snake seemed to have sensed the terror of the lotus. There was a hint of fear in its eyes. It opened its mouth and spat out a stream of golden fire. Immemorial Emperor's Flame. Lin Shi's eyes narrowed. The soul power outside his body became brighter. Apocalyptic fire lotus change. At this moment, his voice was ancient and seemed to contain endless divine power. The instant his words left his mouth, an astonishing change occurred to the lotus image in the air. The lotus petals began to open and bloom. The Tao runes on it were bright and full of immortal energy. Buzz! In just an instant, the golden fire spat out by the demon snake was completely suppressed. The blooming lotus shadow finally enveloped its entire body. Roar! A painful hiss resounded throughout the fire tribe's land. Even the people fighting outside the hall looked towards the top of the mountain with fear in their eyes. At this moment, they could feel a terrifying fluctuation that caused their hearts to palpitate being emitted from the ancient palace. Even Knight, Xing Shun, and the others felt an inexplicable sense of fear. What is this? It's the immemorial imperial flames. It's my emperor's immemorial emperor flame. Unlike the horrified expressions on the faces of Yi Shun and the others, Huaheng's aged eyes were filled with indescribable joy. Finally, the fire race finally has a new emperor. In this way, even if the fire race was destroyed today, he would have no regrets. Disciples of the Fire Clan, fight to the death. Fight! The flames around the overlords of the fire race became brighter, and their eyes were filled with determination. For a time, the Flood Dragon Clan and Xing Clan experts who had the absolute upper hand suddenly became flustered and retreated in a sorry state. Oh, that's interesting. In front of the ancient palace on the mountain peak, Ling Zhao's figure trembled slightly, and his eyes flickered with playfulness. It seemed that the power of this spiritual fire was indeed terrifying. However, the more it was so, the higher the chances of Lin Shi comprehending the Tao law after fusing with it. What he wanted to do was, of course, not to put an effort to fuse with the spiritual fire and comprehend the Tao law. Wouldn't it be better to just plunder it? The Son of Destiny, who was modeled after the Flame Emperor, was the strongest existence on the path to immortality. Ling Xiao was also very interested in the burning scripture that he cultivated. Boom! Golden and scarlet flames intertwined in the hall. Although the immemorial Emperor Flame had developed intelligence, how could it be a match for someone like Elder Ling? Especially at this moment, he was no longer afraid of death and used his cultivation to the extreme. When the second fire lotus attack fell from the sky, the terrifying giant snake formed by the immemorial Emperor Flame finally began to crumble. Roar! The screams and wails gradually subsided. Bai Ling hid at the side of the ancient palace. Other than shock, there was also a faint trace of fear in her beautiful eyes. 2 attacks killed a god, emperor-level demonic beast? The strength of this ancient expert was truly beyond her imagination. However, the more it was so, the more intense the hatred in her heart became. Why? Why did you have to possess my useless brother when you're so strong? When the snake's body completely dissipated, a scarlet golden flame suddenly swept through the void and rushed out of the palace. You still want to run? Come back. The sole light in Lin Shi's eyes turned cold. He directly stretched out his hand and grabbed the immemorial emperor flame. A sharp screech was heard. The immemorial emperor flame, which was so powerful just now, was instantly caught in Lin Shi's hand. Sheer, my soul power is almost exhausted. Do you plan to fuse with the immemorial emperor flame here? Or Elder Ling's tired voice sounded. Lin Shi's eyes immediately regained their clarity. Elder Ling, how are you? I'm afraid I can't do it anymore. However, sure, I can still hold on for a few hours. You should fuse with it here. Otherwise, once the spiritual fire appears, I'm afraid the Lost Clan at the foot of the mountain will not let it go so easily. As long as you can fuse with the immemorial emperor flame, perhaps you can obtain other fortunes. Elder Ling sighed. However, he did not leave Lin Shi's sea of consciousness. The latter only hesitated for a moment. Then he sat down cross-legged on the spot. A scarlet spirit light flickered around his body and wrapped the immemorial emperor flame. Elder Ling was right. With the movement just now, the Lost Clan's experts at the foot of the mountain had already sensed it. If he left with the immemorial emperor flame, it was inevitable that he would be targeted. There were still a few days before the secret realm's entrance opened. He was afraid that he could not play with the Lost Clan here. The familiar burning pain began to come from his Dan C. Lin Shi frowned slightly. He operated the burning scripture to stabilize his mind. Then he enveloped the spiritual fire with his own spiritual power and fused it into his meridians. From the beginning to the end, he did not look at Bai Ling. Now that Elder Ling had walked out of the ring, he naturally did not have to worry too much. Furthermore, it was only at this moment that Lin Shifang felt that he had probably misunderstood Elder Ling. If he had colluded with Ling Xiao, wouldn't that be the best opportunity to kill him? Not far away, Bai Ling stood quietly at the side. Her eyes were still calm. She was still waiting for a chance to kill him in one strike. Although Lin, she seemed to be holding his breath and concentrating. Her killer's instinct told her that the former did not let down his guard. In fact, he was even more cautious than before. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, 4 hours had passed. Outside Lin Shi's body, scarlet and golden flames alternated, until the two completely merged and turned into a deep golden red color. The young man's eyes suddenly opened. What flickered in them was an uncontrollable ecstasy and excitement. The law of flame, the middle stage of Palong. Xia, congratulations. You've finally comprehended the law of flame. Elder Ling's voice was filled with gratification and joy. At the same time, there was a hint of bitterness. Buzz. Just at this moment, Bai Ling, who had been enduring silently, suddenly disappeared from the spot. At the same time, the joy on Lin Shi's face had not dissipated. It completely froze. At this moment, he seemed to feel an extremely dense, bloody aura descending from the top of his head. When he raised his head again, Bai Ling's cold and indifferent face had already appeared a few feet away from him. F***CK. When there is great joy, there is great sorrow hidden. The ancients did not lie to me. Chapter 309. Bitch, I knew it. Lin Shi shouted coldly, and his eyes were filled with resentment. Although his cultivation had broken through, and he had comprehended the law of Tao. However, the evil fluctuation of the sea of blood around Bai Ling made him feel terrified. Elder Ling, Buzz. A soul palm appeared out of thin air. Before Bai Ling could react, it crushed the void and rushed towards her. Damn it! Bai Ling's face froze. The blood light outside her body turned into a seal and fell forward. Her figure disappeared once again. Boom! The palms collided, and the entire hall instantly collapsed. Countless pitch-black cracks appeared in the void, but there was an inexplicable trace of fear in Lin Shi's eyes. His strength was not as good as Bai Ling's. Even if he had comprehended the law of Tao, how could he be a match for the Bloodhall Saintess? A black spear pierced through heaven and earth and stabbed out from the side. Lin Shi's face changed drastically. Elder Ling's figure immediately appeared out of thin air and blocked in front of the former. "Sheer, this is all I can do. The rest will depend on your own luck." Elder Ling let out a long and drawn-out sigh. Then, his entire body transformed into a beam of soul light. He didn't wait for Bai Ling to see his appearance clearly. Then, he instantly enveloped her. Boom! At this moment, Bai Ling only felt her mind go blank. Although her figure was still rushing forward, the world in front of her suddenly fell into endless darkness. Lin Shi's face also became dull, and his eyes were filled with confusion. "What's going on? What the F***CK? I seem to have suddenly gone blind?" Ling Xiao stood in front of Bai Ling and opened his soul consciousness, allowing the soul light that Elder Ling had turned into sweep into his sea of consciousness. Then, he turned his head and took out Lin Shi's soul before withdrawing the dark, forbidden domain. If Elder Ling was at his peak, he naturally would not be able to easily use the forbidden domain. However, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He was also determined to die, so he did not notice Ling Xiao's appearance at all. Therefore, he directly plunged into the latter's sea of consciousness. As for Lin Shi, even if a young man with no fate had comprehended the law of Tao and merged with the spiritual fire, how could he be a match for Ling Xiao? This is... Elder Ling and Lin Shi looked at each other with stupefied expressions. Especially now that both of them had manifested their divine souls, it was extremely strange. Elder Ling, what's going on? I don't know either. Could it be that the little girl's protector has arrived? Elder Ling blankly shook his head. It wasn't until the sound of footsteps suddenly came from behind the two of them that they turned their heads to look in horror. In the next moment, two cries filled with anger and fear resounded at the same time. "Ling Xiao, how could this be? How did he do it?" That darkness just now, and the feeling of my soul leaving my body. I finally met the grandpa in a ring. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently as he sized up Elder Ling. At this time, the soul light on the old man's body was extremely dim. It even gave people the feeling that it would completely dissipate with a gentle blow. What a pity. Such a conscientious ancient expert who taught and dispelled doubts was suspected and plotted against by his disciple. Even so, he still didn't regret it and wanted to sacrifice his life for Lin Shi. Lamentable, pitiful. "Young man, I was careless. I didn't dodge just now. However, sneak attacks are not the actions of a gentleman." Elder Ling's expression was solemn. Especially when he felt the suppression of his divine soul in this space, he instinctively felt a trace of uneasiness in his heart. If he didn't fight with the immemorial Emperor Flame just now, he still had the confidence to fight with Ling Xiao. However, at this time, his soul power had already been exhausted. Just now, he only wanted to invade Bai Ling's sea of consciousness and temporarily control her mind, so that Lin Shi could kill her. But now, he seemed to be in Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness. "A gentleman? Grandpa, when did I say that I'm a gentleman?" Ling Xiao shook his head. He didn't even look at Lin Shi from the beginning to the end. A Powang ant was now in his sea of consciousness. He could still kill him with a wave of his hand. However, this Elder Ling was an expert from 1,000 years ago. He must have many memories of this world in his mind. Otherwise, how could Lin Shi find two heaven and earth spirit fires so easily? "You shameless. Haha, Grandpa, why don't we make a deal? Let me search your divine soul, and I'll help you recover your strength. How about it?" Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. He didn't care about the resentment in Lin Shi's eyes. "Don't even think about it." Elder Ling gritted his teeth. He could vaguely see a trace of death in the depths of his eyes. "Why don't you let me search your divine soul, and I'll let Lin Shi live?" Ling Xiao smiled indifferently when he saw the fluctuations around the elder's body gradually become violent. With the elder's love for Lin Shi, it would be difficult for him to refuse this condition. After all, a disciple who was worth his life had unknowingly become his biggest weakness. As expected, after hearing Ling Zhao's words, hesitation flashed across Elder Ling's eyes. Originally, he planned to self-destruct his divine soul and severely injure Ling Xiao. However, if he could use his dying life to exchange for Lin Shi's chance of survival. How can I believe you? In the end, Elder Ling compromised. He didn't care if he died, but Lin Shi couldn't die. Ha ha! Grandpa, do you think I care about the life and death of an ant? What good will it do me to crush him? Your divine soul's memories are a huge treasure trove to me. Ling Xiao shook his head. His face was calm and collected. You. On the side, Lin Shi's face became more and more ferocious. However, at the same time, he felt an indescribable chill in this unfamiliar space. It was as if Ling Xiao could easily decide his life and death with just a thought. Elder Ling, hurry, promise him. This, if I want you to swear on your Tao heart. Otherwise, I won't let you go even if I destroy my own divine soul. Elder Ling's eyes narrowed. However, he could only choose to believe Ling Xiao in the end. After all, he really didn't have a better choice. If he swore on his Tao heart, it would definitely give birth to inner demons. The higher his cultivation, the greater the backlash. Moreover, it would be very difficult to truly get rid of it. In ancient times, a Tao heart oath was the most solemn ceremony on the path to immortality. Haha, all right. I, Ling Xiao, swear on my Tao heart that if I don't let Lin Shi live today, I will transform into the sky demon. The 9 heavens won't tolerate it. Ling Xiao stretched out 2 fingers seriously, scaring Lin Shi so much that his soul almost collapsed on the spot. Damn, King thought you were going to use your invincible golden finger again. Transform into the sky demon? The 9 heavens won't tolerate it? CK. What a cruel oath. Elder Ling nodded silently and sighed softly. He turned to look at Lin Shi. Thousands of words were about to come out of his mouth, but only one sentence was left. Cheer, live well. Elder Ling, no matter how stupid Lin Shi was, he finally understood that he had misunderstood. Elder Ling tears fell silently. Bits and pieces of the master and disciple before appeared in front of his eyes. Suddenly, Lin Shi felt a sense of regret that he had never felt before. It's too touching. I can't bear to see such touching scenes. Ling Xiao wiped the corner of his eyes and pointed at the black soul palace in the distance. So, old grandpa, hurry up and go on your way. Xia, you must live. Work hard in your cultivation. Don't neglect it. Elder Ling looked back 3 times with every step he took, and his figure finally disappeared into the depths of the soul palace. At the same time, a series of mixed memories began to appear in Ling Zhao's mind. The Black Soul Palace grew another 100 feet tall, and it instantly had the momentum of stepping into the God Emperor realm. Chapter 310. Ling Xiao, can you let me out now? Lin Shi clenched his fists, and the resentment in his eyes had disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a deep indifference. Today, his life was exchanged with Elder Ling's life. The moment Elder Ling died, his Tao heart finally calmed down. In these 7 years, he had gone through life and death with Elder Ling. There were tears, laughter, and pain, but more than that, there was the happiness of growth. Elder Ling would accompany him every time he encountered a setback, patiently comforting him, giving him encouragement and support. The blazing scripture was the most mysterious cultivation technique in the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Even Elder Ling's own spiritual fire was given to Lin Shi without hesitation the moment he cultivated the blazing scripture. But because of Nian Xinyun and the sudden appearance of Ling Xiao, his Tao heart was in chaos. So much so that the Tao in his heart was completely covered by resentment. In the end, he even suspected this old man who had accompanied him for 7 years. At this moment, Lin Shi was very regretful. If he had known earlier, he would have forcibly taken Nian Xinyan away from Misty Mountain. He would never have let her go to Ling people and walk right into their trap. Xinyan, it's cold. Remember to drink more hot water. Wear shoes. Don't always go barefoot. It's not good for your health. Let you out. A trace of surprise flashed across Ling Xiao's face. Brother Lin, what are you talking about? It wasn't that Ling Xiao hadn't thought of instigating Elder Ling to betray him or planting a soul imprint in him for his own use. Furthermore, with Ling Xiao's abilities, it was not impossible for him to protect his spirit from being destroyed. But, after all, this old man was in the revered realm when he was alive. He had transcended the settings of this realm. He was also an alchemist, and his soul was powerful. Who knew if he had other hidden means? And the most important point was, different from Nine Nether, the reason why Ling Xiao had spared Nine Nether's life was because they had not been together for a long time. They had not experienced many hardships, and their feelings are not deep. But Elder Ling was different from Lin Shi. The two had been together for 7 years, and the hardships they had experienced during this period were not comparable to Chu Yang. This point could be seen from Elder Ling's final choice. An ancient expert who had lived for hundreds or even thousands of years was willing to die for Ling Xiao. This kind of feeling really made Ling Xiao very touched. Of course, the most important thing was Nine Nether was beautiful. Wasn't it better to keep it by his side? That old Ling is just an old man. What use is there for him? With the memorized cultivation method in hand, his light and heat dissipated. Ling Xiao, you swore on your Tao heart that you would let me live. Otherwise, you will transform into the sky demon and become the enemy of the entire world. Lin Shi suddenly panicked, especially when he saw the smile on the corner of Ling Xiao's mouth, which made him feel an indescribable uneasiness. Shit! Ling Xiao's expression trembled, and a hint of struggle flashed in his eyes. Then, his figure suddenly trembled for no reason. In the end, under Lin Shi's dumbfounded gaze, he turned into a terrifying devil shadow. Oh no, I've turned into a sky demon. What should I do now? You. Lin Shi looked up at the devil shadow above his head with a blank expression. For a moment, he actually felt an indescribable joy. Retribution. Retribution came too quickly, didn't it? Ling Xiao had just gone back on his word, and the heart oath actually came into effect. The great Tao is indeed fair. Fair. But why do I suddenly feel a little cold? Look, Brother Lin, since I've already been cursed, I'm sorry. Don't worry. I'll take good care of our sister. Ling Xiao smiled coldly. Before Lin Shi could react, he suddenly stretched out his hand, grabbed Lin Shi's soul, and threw it into his mouth. Crunch! Crunch! The flame Tao law was in his hands. As for the 2 spiritual fires in Lin Shi's body, beep! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Chosen One. The system rewards the host with 1/4 of a realm seed, a supreme grade Tao artifact, and 1 divine wind and thunder wings. F*CK? 1/4 of a realm seed? F*CKU. I think you're deliberately targeting me. Ling Xiao was stunned, and he almost cursed out loud. So if I kill 1 more person, you'll reward me with 1/8 of a realm seed, won't you? How long do I have to save before I can evolve a world in my soul sea? Beep. In view of the host's insult to the system, the supreme gray Tao artifact, divine wind and thunder wings, will be retracted. I hope the host will remain respectful to the system. Above the fire tribe's land, golden fire clouds covered the sky. The dark color made Yi Shun and the other 2 god emperors feel an inexplicable sense of fear. However, just as everyone looked up at the sky with solemn expressions, the fire clouds actually began to disperse on their own, and in the blink of an eye, they regained their clarity. Yi Shun and the other god emperors looked at each other, but in the end, they looked gloomily at Hua Hong. At this moment, there was an inexplicable smile on the latter's face. He already felt that their emperor had returned. Boom! At the ancient palace on the mountain peak, Bai Ling stood in place with a blank expression, and there was an indescribable feeling on her pretty face. At this moment, The spear in her hand had already pierced through Lin Shi's figure. Blood flowed all over the ground, and the latter's corpse was already cold. Was it so easy? It was so easy that she even felt that it was a little unreal. Just now, she clearly saw Lin Shi use an extremely powerful divine soul attack. It seemed like a human figure, but it also seemed like it wasn't. In short, a soul light swept toward her, and she couldn't guard against it at all. Then, her world seemed to have sunk into endless darkness. But, just as Bai Ling's heart was filled with despair, the sky began to light up, and Lin Shi had already been killed by her spear. Could it be that something had happened to the spirit fire he had fused with? Before Bai Ling could understand the whole story, an anxious call suddenly came from behind her. A white-clothed figure swept over from afar and appeared beside her in a flash. Big brother, Ling Xiao. Looking at the anxiety on Ling Xiao's face, Bai Ling suddenly felt a little sweet in her heart. Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? Quick, let me take a look and turn around. Let me touch and see why you're so disobedient. Didn't you say to wait for me to come and talk? Your bones are all broken. Ling Xiao was flustered, and his grief and indignation were mixed with heartache. Bai Ling just stood there blankly, allowing the youth's palm to touch her from her chest to her legs, and a blush gradually rose on her charming face. Fortunately, it's only a few broken bones. Quick, eat this bottle of medicinal pills. Just as Bai Ling was somewhat embarrassed and twisting her delicate body, Ling Xiao had already stopped the movement of his hand with a gloomy face and fiercely glared at her. Are you not going to listen to my words? Big brother? No, Bai Ling lowered her head in grievance. She understood that Ling Xiao's reprimand was out of concern for her. She hadn't experienced this kind of familial feeling for a long time. Unknowingly, tears had already appeared in her eyes. And Lin Shi is dead? You killed him. Ling Xiao suddenly exclaimed and looked at Bai Ling in disbelief. I killed him, right? Is that so? Right? But it didn't seem to be so. Ling, you're really too powerful. This is an ancient expert of the venerable realm, even if his cultivation is not. Linger, you're really worthy of being Brother Lin's sister. Ling Xiao excitedly hugged Bai Ling in his arms, and seemed to have forgotten himself. He kept kissing her forehead and face, and tears flickered in his eyes. When she felt the warmth of Ling Xiao's embrace, a blissful smile finally appeared on Bai Ling's face. Now Ling is Big Brother Ling Xiao's sister. That's right. Ling, did Lin Shi find a good fortune here? The two of them played around for a while, and Ling Xiao's gaze suddenly landed on Lin Shi's corpse. This was a treasure trove. There were two types of spiritual fire hidden inside. Although he had already comprehended the law of fire, who would complain about having more tricks up his sleeve? The burning scripture. This was the cultivation technique that the Flame Emperor had cultivated. If he were to impart this scripture to tremble Ling Xiao, the taste of ice and fire will definitely make you so painful that you won't be able to live. Chapter 3:11. Brother, Lin Shi seems to have fused with a heaven and earth spiritual fire. Bai Ling nodded seriously. Apparently, she had complete trust in Ling Xiao. Oh, heaven and earth spiritual fire? Such a divine item. He is indeed an ancient expert. He can actually fuse it with his body. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and revealed a panicked look. But Mother seems to be looking for a heaven and earth spiritual fire. She said that she wants to use it to refine pills. Sai, forget it. Ling Er, you are talented. Maybe this spiritual fire will help you make a breakthrough in your cultivation. Brother, what are you talking about? I cultivate the Tao of killing and have comprehended the Tao of blood shadow. Although this spiritual fire is magical, it is useless to me. Since Auntie is looking for it, of course, I will give it to her. Bai Ling blushed. Her eyes were filled with shyness. Isn't Brother's mother my mother? I am so obedient. Mother will like me, right? This is not good. Ling Er, although we are brother and sister now, as your brother, how can I take advantage of you? How about this? Lin Shi's Qian Kuan ring belongs to you, and the spiritual fire belongs to me. Ling Xiao frowned and pondered for a moment. Finally, he opened his mouth and said, Lin Shi's Qian Kuan ring. He is just a young man from the mountains. Other than the grandpa in the ring, what other treasures does he have? Brother, Bai Ling stomped her little feet in anger. Why is this silly brother so serious? To Ling, Big Brother was the greatest fortune of this trip. Brother, if you continue to be like this, I will really get angry. You have given me countless treasures. What I want is Qian Kuan ring. Hurry up and take the spiritual fire. I will go and deal with Shui Yu at the door. Bai Ling pouted and snorted. She turned around and was about to leave. She had long disliked Shui Yu. She was eccentric all day long and did not look like a good woman. Of course, Bai Ling would not let such a woman get close to Ling Xiao. Bad woman, stay away from my brother. Hey, wait. Ling. The corners of Ling Xiao's eyes twitched slightly. Although this little girl looked mischievous, she was decisive and ruthless in her actions. However, Shui Yu is his slave. In a while, he was still hoping that Saint Essene Fan would strike a blow to Xia Chen's Dao heart. Now that she was killed, too early. Brother, what's wrong? That Shui Yu is not a good person. Previously, I saw her sneaking around with Lin Shi. Bai Ling's big black eyes flashed with a touch of coldness. Obviously, she was on guard against Shui Yu. When I came in just now, I talked to Saintess Shui. She was also deceived by Lin Shi. She's quite pitiful. I think we should give her a chance to start anew. Ling Xiao said sternly. He reached out and pinched Bai Ling's nose. And you're just a little girl. Don't fight and kill all day. In the future, leave this kind of thing to me. You just focus on being my little princess. After saying that, Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly flashed with a touch of evil. Okay, then I'll listen to brother. But brother, you're not allowed to let Shui Yu follow by your side. Later on, let her do what she should do. Bai Ling smiled sweetly and hugged Ling Xiao's arm. The latter immediately held his forehead and sighed. This Bai Ling's temper seemed a little too overbearing. Did she intend to let him pamper her alone? However, she had no parents since she was young. When she was young, she was schemed against by the Blood Soul Temple, and her adoptive father's clan was slaughtered. She lacked love. All these years in the Blood Soul Temple, she had probably seen the coldness and cruelty of a human world. Now that she suddenly had someone to pamper her, she naturally had to cherish it and firmly occupy it. However, due to her killer's instinct, perhaps she would not easily submit to anyone. This required a process. Of course, Ling Xiao had another important reason to keep her. Blood Soul Temple. Okay, I'll listen to you. Ling Xiao walked to Lin Shi's side, took off the interspatial ring from his finger, and found the green demonic ancient cauldron. Then, according to the method recorded in the burning scripture, he directly put the crimson fire and immemorial emperor flame into the cauldron. However, just as Ling Xiao's hand seals changed and he was about to seal the green demonic ancient cauldron, the immemorial emperor flame suddenly swept out of the cauldron, turned into an endless sea of fire, and fell on Ling Xiao's head. Damn it! This spiritual fire has given birth to spiritual intelligence. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly. Finally, he gritted his teeth and shouted at Bai Ling, Linger, wait for me here. After saying that, his figure instantly disappeared. Glazed ancient pagoda, the first floor. Ling Xiao looked coldly at the golden flames that were changing shape from time to time in midair. He could not help but sigh in his heart. This was the difference between the destiny and the villain. Although the Destiny's Child had to go through countless dangers, the ending would definitely be perfect. No matter how strong the ferocious fire was, it would not be a threat to him. Even the suffering he had to endure was just a setting to train his Tao heart. However, the villain was different. Even if he obtained the spiritual fire, there would be unforeseen circumstances. Thank goodness. Fortunately, Ling Xiao had already killed the old grandpa and mastered the burning scripture's profound meaning. Otherwise, he would really be at a loss for what to do now. Master, Mi Yong and Folded Shadows figures came from the side, and they were also shocked. The power of the heaven and earth spiritual fire was something that even Emperor God experts had to be wary of. Moreover, the spiritual fire in front of them was not only ferocious, but it was also left behind by the ancient emperor. One could imagine its power. What a beautiful fire! Just as the three of them were looking at the golden flames in midair, Feng Ling's figure suddenly appeared in the distance. Not only was there no panic on her face, but there was also a hint of curiosity. Feng Ling, can you suppress this fire? Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed. He had mastered the burning scripture's profound meaning, but he had not started cultivating it yet. It was too risky to rashly merge with the spiritual fire. After all, he was a villain. Of course, he had to be cautious at all times. Otherwise, he would die inadvertently. You can't deal with it yourself? Feng Ling looked at Ling Xiao in confusion, and her expression was a little strange. F***CK. Aren't you asking nonsense? If I could deal with it, I wouldn't have asked you. Great, there's a good show to watch. Under Ling Zhao's flabbergasted gaze, Feng Ling suddenly withdrew a small stone stool and a jar of immortal wine from her bosom, and she actually sat down with a calm expression. Please start your performance. F***CK. You're heartless. You're cruel. You're cold. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth and turned to look at Mi Yong and Folded Shadow. Their expressions froze, and then they swallowed their saliva in unison. My lord, I also want to share your burden, but I can't do it. Folded Shadow smiled bitterly, and Mi Yong nodded repeatedly. The spiritual fire of heaven and earth was of extreme yang and had a great restraining effect on evil spirits. Not to mention the two of them. Even Wu Nye might not be able to suppress it. You just need to help me block it for a moment. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and hurriedly opened the system interface. Burning scripture, add a point for me. Wong. A strange buzzing sound rang out. The immemorial Emperor Flame suddenly turned into a giant snake and bit down on Ling Zhao's head. Chapter 312. You're courting death. Mi Yong shouted angrily. His body suddenly expanded and transformed into his true form. He charged at the immemorial Emperor Flame. Boom! The moment the two collided, a strange smell filled the air. Faintly, it smelled like meat. It smells so good. Feng Ling swallowed hard, scaring the furious chaos demonic ape so much that it almost fainted on the spot. Double Shadow, I'll block it. See if you can trap it for a moment. Despite his fear, Mi Yong did not dare to be careless. The black staff in his hand transformed into thousands of demonic shadows and smashed down on the immemorial Emperor Flame's head. Pucci. However, the spiritual fire was incorporeal. Despite Mi Yong's innate strength, he was unable to affect it at all. On the other hand, his skin turned darker. It looked like it was about to be medium cooked. Gulp. Thousand illusions, bewildering array. Double Shadow rushed over from the side, surrounded by demonic intent. A wisp of dim spirit light flashed, instantly trapping the immemorial Emperor Flame within. Roar. However, the illusion trapped the heart, not the body. The more complicated the heart, the easier it was to fall into the illusion. However, the immemorial Emperor Flame did not have high intelligence and was made of the origin energy. The appearance of countless demonic shadows seemed to have stimulated the immemorial Emperor Flame's ferocious nature. Its body, which was originally hundreds of feet long, expanded to hundreds of feet long in an instant. The countless illusions were destroyed, and an extremely hot aura spread out. Mi Yong swallowed hard. His body was originally similar to the immemorial Emperor Flame, but now, Double Shadow, I suspect that you're trying to kill the Lord. Folded Shadow's pretty face froze as she glared fiercely at Mi Yong. However, when she saw the spiritual fire suddenly descend towards Ling Xiao, a look of determination flashed across her eyes. Stop! But at this moment, a soft shout came from the Glaze ancient pagoda. The ferocious flames that were descending from the sky seemed to have frozen in place, stopping 3 feet above Ling Zhao's head. Boring. Feng Ling snorted coldly before disappearing. Gulp. Both Mi Yong and Double Shadow were shocked. As expected of Lord Feng Ling. One word from him could suppress the world. Buzz. At the same time, spiritual light suddenly bloomed around Ling Zhao's body. When he opened his eyes, his expression also inexplicably trembled. F***CK. Why is the immemorial Emperor Flame so big? How am I going to merge it with my body? Is someone trying to kill me? Immemorial Emperor Flame. In the blink of an eye, Ling Zhao's expression calmed down. Soul light flashed in his eyes, and an invisible giant net wrapped around the Emperor Flame and pulled it into his body. Boom! The scorching heat assaulted him. It was a terrifying power that seemed capable of incinerating him into cinders. Flame Dao Law surged around Ling Zhao's body. Even so, his face turned pale in an instant. He immemorial, emperor immemorial, emperor immemorial. It turned out that the dangers they had experienced were much more terrifying than what was written in the books. All this while, Ling Zhao had relied on the system to help him with his cultivation. But now, when he was about to merge with the immemorial Emperor Flame, he felt a pressure he had never felt before. Buzz! As expected, Ling Zhao's skin began to fester and bleed. He looked terrible, as if his skin was about to split open. This kind of intense pain made him miss his sister-in-law very much. If Yi Sun-er were by his side, she would be encouraging him and saying, "Brother, you're the best." Ling Zhao believed that two immemorial Emperor Flame would not be a problem for him. Sky Demon True Body. Demonic Qi began to spread. An ancient and majestic shadow appeared above Ling Zhao's head. At the same time, water vapor began to flow under Ling Zhao's skin, relieving his pain. Time passed slowly. When there was no more heat in the ancient pagoda, the young man who was sitting cross-legged suddenly opened his eyes. At that moment, golden flames danced in Ling Zhao's eyes. An indescribably terrifying aura spread out. Mi Yong and Folded Shadow were so shocked that their hearts skipped a beat. Congratulations, Master. So, this is the experience of being the child of destiny. Ling Zhao muttered to himself. In the next moment, a sinister look flashed across his eyes. Damn, being the villain is still more comfortable. Who wants to be the child of destiny? Anyway, you go through hardships and I go through you. As for the burning scripture, I'll leave it for Lin Meng and the others to cultivate. Really? My dick hurts. Ling Zhao shook his head and disappeared in front of Mi Yong and Folded Shadow. Why isn't brother back yet? Where did brother go? In the ancient palace, Bai Ling rubbed the corner of her clothes. She was bored and worried. Buzz! At that moment, the space in front of her suddenly trembled. Ling Zhao's figure appeared in front of her. Brother! Bai Ling never thought that there would be a day when she would be so worried about someone. 7 years of hardships had made her used to loneliness. However, Ling Zhao's appearance was like a ray of starlight in the endless darkness. It was dazzling and filled with heat. If she wasn't careful, it would be gone in the blink of an eye. Ling Zhao smiled faintly. He opened his arms and hugged the small figure. However, a hint of coldness flashed across his eyes. Linger, does the sect know that you came out this time? Brother, don't worry. So what if they know? I'm the Blood Hall's holy daughter. Except for Master, they have to listen to me. Bai Ling smiled sweetly, revealing 2 beautiful canine teeth. Blood Hall's holy daughter. Then your relationship with your master must be very deep, right? Ling Zhao nodded slightly. He looked like he wanted to say something, but stopped. This, however, to Ling Zhao's surprise, Bai Ling's beautiful eyes showed a hint of disappointment when she heard this. Then, she shook her head gently. Since I was young, Master only taught me how to kill people. He rarely cared about other things. I see. Linger, I have something that I don't know if I should tell you. Ling Zhao smiled bitterly. However, he was inexplicably excited. Damn, this was really amazing. Brother, what is it that you can't tell Linger? Tell me quickly. Bai Ling snuggled in Ling Zhao's arms. This time, Master would definitely punish her if he knew that she had sneaked out. Although he might not be very strict, It would be a long time before she could come out to see Brother Ling Xiao privately. At the thought of this, Bai Ling felt inexplicably wronged. She even wanted to grow up quickly so that she could take charge of the blood hall. Then, Master would not be able to control her. Actually, your brother and I have secretly investigated before. There seems to be a hidden story behind the massacre of the Lin family. Ling Xiao sighed. His expression was extremely complicated. He knew that what he was going to say next would definitely make this simple-minded little girl completely depressed. But it seemed very exciting just thinking about it. Hidden story? What hidden story? Sure enough, Bai Ling's expression instantly turned grave when she heard this. Over the years, she had used the power of the Blood Hall to investigate the massacre of the Lin family. However, she had not found a single clue. This matter was not normal to begin with. After all, the Blood Soul Temple was known as the Shengzhou Intelligence Agency. Even it could not find the murderer. Could it be that there was a hidden story behind this matter? Very suddenly, Bai Ling felt a strong sense of uneasiness. Chapter 313. Sigh. Linger, you should have inquired about what happened that year, right? You probably didn't find anything, right? Looking at the flickering fluctuations in the girl's eyes, Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile. It's starting. The destined girl was indeed smart. She started to fill in the gaps in her brain. Brother, how did you know? Bai Ling's expression turned cold, and the uneasiness in her heart grew stronger. The white-robed swordsman, an expert of the Taoist law, has a slender scar on his face. With such an obvious appearance, how could the Blood Soul Temple not find him? Boom! Suddenly, Bai Ling's eyes widened. That's right. Brother Ling Xiao was talking about the expert who slaughtered the Lin clan. It seemed that he really investigated this matter with Brother Lin Shi. But why? Why couldn't the Blood Soul Temple find him? Could it be? Impossible. But, according to our investigation, the white-robed swordsman is from the Blood Soul Temple. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at Bai Ling with a painful expression. Hearing this, Ling Er's delicate body trembled and she almost fell to the ground. Linger, how are you? No, it's impossible. Although Master is strict with me, he still dotes on me. How could he? In fact, she had already guessed it, but she didn't want to believe it. How could it be? I actually lived with the enemy who killed my adoptive father's clan for 7 years. Sigh. Linger, before we met you, Brother Lin and I were very confused as to why the Blood Soul Temple would travel thousands of miles to slaughter a small mountain clan. But after meeting you, I figured it out. Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and wiped away the tears in Bai Ling's eyes. It's because of your talent. I heard that the Blood Soul Temple always likes to recruit those orphans with hatred. Only in this way can they kill without any scruples. Of course, this is just my guess, but I have a way to verify it. What is it? Bai Ling was a little emotional. The strangeness of this matter had troubled her for many years. But now, after listening to Ling Zhao's explanation, everything seemed to make sense. Could it be it's really Master? Previously, in an ancient ruin, I once obtained a soul cultivation method. It's called the soul-absorbing ancient technique. It can control a person's soul. Although this kind of evil technique is not tolerated in the world, it also depends on who it is used on. I have always firmly believed that there is no evil power in this world, only evil people's hearts. Ling Zhao's face was filled with a righteous glow. Even Bai Ling's heart was filled with heartfelt admiration. Brother, you are truly the light of the righteous path. Ancient soul assimilation technique. Just from a name alone, one could tell how sinister this ancient technique was. Could it be that Big Brother was cultivating it? That's right, Linger. If we want to find out what happened to the Lin family, I'm afraid we have to start with the Blood Soul Temple. Brother, you mean the Blood Soul Temple is really too mysterious? No one even knows where the sect is. Big Brother, the Sacred Hall, is on Qingtsang Mountain in the center of the Shengzhou continent. Ling Xiao stared blankly at Bai Ling. Was it that simple? Didn't such a mysterious assassin sect have extremely strict sect rules or soul restrictions that forbade their disciples from leaking any information? Green Mountain? That's right, brother. Usually I and Master Blood Soul Temple Lord and senior brothers and sisters cultivate in Green Mountain. They're only the most direct descendants in the sect. The other experts of the temple usually do not appear. They are all hidden in various sections. Bai Ling nodded with a serious expression. Yes, that's right. For a sect like the Blood Soul Temple, there would not be many connections between the assassins. Even if they were all members of the temple, they might not know each other's identity. This way, one person would not be caught, and the whole sect would not be exposed. And this was probably the reason why Bai Ling had never met the white-robed swordsman. Bai Ling, in your temple, there should be an elder who is in charge of assigning tasks to other disciples. It's best if they are not too strong. Ling Zhao's plan was very simple. He would let Bai Ling find a blood hall elder and search his soul. Everything would naturally come to light. The white-robed swordsman was from the blood hall. He did not lie to her about this. But this girl had been with the Blood Soul Temple Lord for 7 years. If he wanted to completely turn the two against each other, some things could not be said with words. He had to let her see it with her own eyes. There is an elder in the sect who is in charge of this. And that elder has been very good to me since I was young. He often brings me delicious food and fun things to play with. Bai Ling looked at Ling Xiao blankly. But at this time, she saw the corners of the latter's mouth curl up into a smile. Brother, you're not thinking of this soul assimilation ancient skill is very magical. It will not make people lose their minds like the ordinary soul search. You only need to form a soul seal in his sea of consciousness, and his memories will naturally be seen by you. We are only using this skill to investigate the extermination of the Lin clan. We don't need to use it to harm people. Besides, as long as we find the answer we want, you can release that elder. Ling Xiao patiently persuaded, and the blankness on Bai Ling's face gradually dissipated. Brother, what you said makes sense. Although the skill was evil, it had different uses. As long as they could investigate the extermination of the Lin clan, it was not impossible to cultivate it. Moreover, Ling if the Blood Soul Temple Lord is really the mastermind behind the extermination of the Lin clan, do you think we can really avenge the Lin clan with our strength? If Brother Lin knows in the underworld, will he blame you for this? Ling Xiao sighed, as if he wanted to, but he was powerless. Brother, Bai Ling's beautiful eyes were filled with sadness. Yes, if the Blood Soul Temple Lord was really the mastermind behind this, then she was the culprit behind the extermination of the Lin clan. Brother Lin, she must hate her to death. But the Blood Soul Temple was the most terrifying force in the Xingzhou, apart from the Saint sect. Not to mention Ling Xiao and her. Even if the Ling people were to use all their strength, they would not be able to shake it. Therefore, this forbidden skill may be our only chance. Of course, how can I bear to let you cultivate such an evil skill? Ling, you're so pure and kind. I will not allow you to be tainted by evil skills. How about this? I will cultivate it, and then gather the soul seal. Then, you only need to use the power of the soul seal to control others. Ling Zhao's tone was undeniably domineering. Although Bai Ling did not fully understand what he meant, what did he mean by gathering the soul seal? What was the soul seal? But it felt very warm. Brother really did everything for Ling Er's sake. I will listen to you. Bai Ling was not at all interested in evil skills. It was said that there were some evil skills in this world. Once cultivated, one would lose control and gradually become an evil spirit. Unless it was a last resort, she naturally did not want to try it. But if Brother cultivated it, would he be in danger? Okay, then open your mind. I will gather the soul seal for you. Ling Xiao took a deep breath, and his eyes suddenly flashed with a monstrous soul light. Before Bai Ling could voice her concerns, a flickering ancient seal solidified and fell toward Bai Ling's soul sea. But, unlike the previous soul seal, this one did not disappear in a flash. Instead, it turned into a surge of soul power and completely enveloped Bai Ling's soul palace. The girl's eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. Suddenly, she felt as though there was an inexplicable connection between herself and Big Brother Ling Xiao. Although the connection was slight, It was real. But was this ancient skill so easy to cultivate? Brother mastered it in an instant. As expected of Brother, his talent was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 314. All right, Linger. Don't use the power of this soul imprint easily. I will leave it in your sea of consciousness. Ordinary people won't be able to detect it, but I'm afraid someone will do something to you if they see it. Ling Xiao smiled gently. His tone was filled with concern. Ling Xiao had refined that soul imprint for a long time. Or rather, he had been preparing it since the day he met Bai Ling. His goal was, of course, not to control Bai Ling. Instead, he wanted her to help him control others. As long as Bai Ling used the power of the soul imprint, the person who would be controlled would not only be Bai Ling's soul slave, but also Ling Xiao's soul slave. Moreover, since this soul imprint was formed by Ling Xiao, he would have the absolute initiative. Even if Bai Ling removed the soul imprint, the soul slave would not be able to escape Ling Xiao's control. This kind of relationship was probably equivalent to, do you understand? Ling Xiao stood at the top of the pyramid, and Bai Ling was one level below him. As for whether there would be a second or third level in the future, Ling Xiao thought that there would be. After all, this kind of control was absolute loyalty. He did not have to worry about anyone betraying him. Why not? Of course, someone might scold him. Wouldn't it be better to directly plant a soul imprint on Bai Ling? How should he put it? A soul imprint would more or less affect a person's behavior and expression. Although it was subtle, with Bai Ling's identity, if she showed any abnormality, the Blood Soul Holy Lord would probably notice it immediately. Moreover, if a soul imprint was planted, it would not be able to activate the system's final reward. Moreover, once he did that, Bai Ling's providence would no longer be able to increase. Only a fool would do something like losing both pleasure and treasure. The system could not lie. Now, this girl already regarded him as her only family in the world. The reason why she did not completely submit was probably related to the Blood Soul Holy Lord. Although Bai Ling said that her master was very strict, she still had some feelings for him in her heart. And as long as he could cut off this shackle of hers, this little sister would be his. Are you happy? What does it have to do with me? In any case, I enjoy it. If Bai Ling could quietly plant this soul imprint on her teacher. Hiss. Very happy, very happy. Of course, this soul seal also had another function, which was to prevent others from probing Bai Ling's spiritual sense memories. Once someone did it by force, the soul seal would shatter. As for Bai Ling, Ling Xiao didn't want to be targeted by the Blood Soul Holy Lord before he could reap any benefits. That person's strength may not be the strongest, but is sinister. No, his ability to kill people while hiding in the dark is not below me at all. All right, big brother. But won't it be dangerous for you to practice such a forbidden technique? At this point, Bai Ling was still worried about Ling Xiao's safety. Hearing this, Ling Xiao immediately shook his head and smiled. A dazzling bolt of lightning shot up into the sky from his body. Don't worry, Ling. I have the lightning principle with me. All evil in the world will be avoided. That's true. Big brother, you have comprehended the most yang energy in the world. How can a mere cultivation method affect your state of mind? Bai Ling smiled with sudden understanding. She had once heard that the experts who were able to comprehend the lightning Dao law were mostly upright and plain-spoken people with upright characters. Such people not only acted in an upright manner, but also had a strong Taoist heart. It seemed that this was the case. Ling, although I don't want you to return to the Blood Soul Holy Temple, it seems that to find out the blood feud between the Lin clan and the Lin clan, I can only wrong you. Ling Xiao's face was still filled with sorrow, as if he was worried about Bai Ling's trip. Big brother, what are you talking about? How can this be called wrong? It was my hatred to begin with. I made big brother worry. Ling, feels very guilty. Ling, you must remember that this soul seal can only be used when the other party is completely relaxed. You must not be too hasty. If this is really done by the Blood Soul Holy Lord, you must be more careful. Discuss with me first. Don't let him see any flaws for the time being. Otherwise, Ling Xiao repeatedly reminded her. He did not really care about Bai Ling's life or death. However, now she was the only spy in the Blood Soul Holy Temple, which was enough for Ling Xiao to pay more attention to her. After all, when a white-robed swordsman came to the mortal world, it was really strange. Ling Xiao suspected that there were some shocking secrets hidden in the Blood Soul Holy Temple. Big brother, I understand. If it is really the Blood Soul Holy Lord, I will not let him go. Father, big brother, and more than 100 people of the Lin clan will not die in vain. Bai Ling clenched her silver teeth, and a touch of determination appeared on her small face. Big brother Ling Xiao, this time is all thanks to you. Otherwise, I might have been kept in the dark. You just need to remember that no matter when, I will stand behind you. Ling Xiao reached out, took Bai Ling's small hand, and walked out of the ancient temple. The trip to the Fire Tribe was fruitful. Not only did he reap 2 destined ones, but he also gained 2 heaven and earth spiritual fires and a lost tribe. The moment Ling Xiao merged with the primordial emperor flame, he understood why the Fire Tribe had guarded this place for hundreds of years without leaving. Or rather, guarding such a precious treasure of heaven and earth, they had never been tempted. Ling Xiao did not believe that it was all because of loyalty. After all, the ancient emperor had died hundreds of years ago, and the Fire Tribe had been passed down for several generations. Even if the servants who followed the ancient emperor were loyal, did you expect his grandchildren to be as loyal as him? The path to immortality was vast, and there was endless joy. Who would be willing to guard a dead person's grave for life? What? It was in other people's novels? Then this tribe must be guarding the inheritance and good fortune for the main character. Otherwise, everyone knew that there was good fortune here. Why would they not fight for it? Everything was for the main character. This was the so-called concept of luck, mysterious and unfathomable. But it was not the setting of a lousy author. The reason why the Fire Tribe was here was indeed to wait for the destined ones to appear. However, this was not all because of loyalty, but because the ancient emperor had already made arrangements. When the fire was here, the tribe was here. When the fire was extinguished, the tribe was gone. Young master, seeing the 2 figures coming out from the depths of the ancient temple, Shui Yu-er's face suddenly revealed a trace of shyness. However, just as she was about to walk towards Ling Xiao, Bai Ling stood in front of her. You, stay away from my brother. Your brother. Shui Yu almost said, isn't he dead? However, at this moment, a faint light flashed in her eyes, and she immediately retreated to the side. Let's go. There's still a good show waiting for me to start. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, kicked open the door, and walked out with Bai Ling. As for the barrier on the door, F***CK. I didn't come in from here at all. The dome of the main hall was overturned, and I fell directly. Isn't that good? Wong. The originally noisy Fire Tribe suddenly became silent for a moment. Everyone looked at the figure that walked out of the ancient temple, and their eyes were filled with shock and awe. Immediately, Yi Shun, Xing Shun, and Hua Heng, the 3 great god emperors, bowed at the same time. Greetings, young master. Greetings, master. Greetings, new emperor. Yi Shun and Xing Shun were stunned, and they turned to look at Hua Heng, who was also in a daze. F***CK. Did this bastard think that he could save his life by surrendering? Chapter 315. Get up. To Yi Shun and Xing Shun's surprise, Ling Xiao didn't seem surprised at all. He just glanced at Hua Heng indifferently. It can't be. Young lord, after fighting for such a long time, they were all on the same side? You should have at least said something. Fortunately, Hua Heng had a lot of tricks up his sleeves and wasn't beaten to death by the 2 of them. Otherwise, is the banquet going to start again tonight? Brother, they are all your men. Yes. Linger, you can play by yourself for a while. I have something to do. When I'm done, I'll come back to find you. Ling Xiao turned his head to look at Shui Yu-er, and the latter immediately understood what he meant and flew away. That night ginseng, stew 1. Tonight, I'm going to entertain my guests. Ling Xiao's lips suddenly curled into a sinister smile, scaring Yi Shun and the others. Qing Yin, I prepared the flood dragon meat. Tonight, let's cultivate properly, okay? Yes, young lord. Yi Shin bowed with a pious expression. Those who are worthy of young lords stewing the flood dragon must be very important guests. It seems like I have to spend some effort to study the dishes later. Brother, where are you going? I want to go too. Bai Ling grabbed Ling Zhao's arm, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. What he wanted to do was to completely capture Nian Qingyun's heart. If he brought a little beauty with him now, wouldn't he be making a fool of himself? Linger be good. Brother is going to send a good brother to the afterlife. I'll be back soon. Let me tell you, the flood dragon meat is very delicious. What flavor do you want to eat? Tell Yi Shun. I might be back before it's ready. Ling Xiao bent down and rubbed Bai Ling's little head. Brother? All right, flood dragon meat. I really haven't eaten it before. Brother, you have to come back soon. Which one is Yi Shun? Quick, bring me to catch the flood dragon. Bai Ling skipped towards the crowd, whereas Yi Shun's old face instantly froze, and he immediately took a step forward and said with an embarrassed smile, Eldest young miss, there's no need to catch flood dragons to eat. We'll just stew any of them that you find pleasing to the eye. What do you mean by this? Bai Ling was clearly stunned. Then, she stared dumbfoundedly at the group of Flood Dragon Clan experts in front of her who had suddenly revealed their true forms and were looking at her with terrified expressions. On the other side, Ling Xiao left the fire race and stood on top of a giant tree, looking at the golden light that covered the sky in the distance. Beside him, Shui Yuer's expression was humble, but there was some doubt between her brows. Why was young master still so calm when he knew that Nian Qingyun was in trouble? You know what to do later, right? Ling Xiao looked deeply into Shui Yuer's eyes. The latter's body trembled, and she nodded firmly. With young master's strength, he could clearly kill Xia Qin easily. Why did he have to make it so flashy? Wouldn't it be better to kill him with one palm strike? Of course, even if Shui Yuer racked her brains, she probably would not be able to figure out what it meant to plunder Providence. In the valley, Xia Qin's battle saber slashed down and shattered the thousands of afterimages that Nian Qingyun had transformed into. Then, he sneered at the goddess of the Dao Palace who was not far away, whose pretty face had already turned pale, as expected of the chaotic, spiritual, divine body. Even though her cultivation level had dropped, she had still fought with him for an entire day. If it were not for the suppression of the Dao artifact, he might not have been able to capture her. However, as a human, there would be a moment when her spiritual energy would be exhausted. At this moment, the Dao principles around Nian Qingyun were scattered. It was obvious that she was an arrow at the end of its flight. At the thought of being able to taste the beauty of this goddess later, a hint of greed flashed across Xia Chen's eyes. Goddess Nian, we have been fighting for an entire day. Why don't you just give in to me? Xia Chen put away his saber and sneered. Don't even think about it. Even if I die, I will not let you have your way. Nian Qingyun's eyes turned cold. Finally, this moment had come. She had already seen this ending on the faceless jade wall. This secret realm was filled with fog to her. The wall said that she would dissipate here and become a new self. In Nian Qingyun's opinion, she was most likely going to die here. However, she did not believe that a mere illusory realm could determine her life and death. But now, it seemed perhaps this was all fate. Ling Xiao, in the end, you've given up on me. Nian Qingyun, isn't this what you want? The great Dao is heartless. But in the end, the heartless one is someone else. You're just pretending to be heartless, pitiful and laughable. You want him to leave, but you also want him to come. You don't want to see him, but you miss him. You are about to die, yet you still dare to be so stubborn. Fine, I will now have a taste of how stubborn your mouth is. Xia Chen's eyes were filled with disdain. However, just as he rushed out and was about to pounce on Nian Qingyun, a cold voice suddenly came from above his head. Today, I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Upon hearing the voice, not only Xia Chen, but also Nian Qingyun's pretty face showed a trace of dullness. When they looked up, they saw a white-clothed figure descending from the sky and standing quietly on the spiritual screen of the Tao artifact. His face was extremely cold. Ling Xiao, the corners of Nian Qingyun's mouth trembled slightly, but it eventually turned into a sincere smile. In the end, he still came, when she was at her most desperate. Ling Xiao. Xia Chen's face turned slightly serious, and a trace of fear instantly surged in his eyes. How could this be? He had clearly sealed this valley with a Tao artifact, and not a trace of aura was released. How did Ling Xiao find this place? Could it be a coincidence? However, before he could ponder for too long, an ancient sword suddenly appeared in Xia Chen's hand, and he slashed at the golden spiritual screen. Boom! The sound of fear shook heaven and earth. However, Xia Chen's Tao Bell was also a high-grade Tao artifact, and its power was monstrous. Therefore, the sword didn't manage to shatter the spiritual screen. Ha ha! Ling Xiao, aren't you very arrogant? You came at the right time. Today, in front of you, I will take your sweetheart. Hee hee hee. The panic on Xia Chen's face disappeared in a flash, and then he looked at Nian Qingyun gloomily. There was even a trace of undetectable bloody light in the depths of his eyes. Bitch, didn't you always look down on me? Now, I'll let you know who your destiny is. Xia Chen, if you dare to touch her, I will make sure you don't enter the reincarnation cycle. Ling Xiao roared, and there was panic in his eyes. However, Nian Qingyun smiled sadly and sighed helplessly in her heart. She looked up at the white-clothed figure who was constantly waving his sword and suddenly said, Ling Xiao, I am very happy that you can come. We are not fated in this life, but in the next life. I am willing to stay by your side. It was clearly words of love, but when they came out of Nian Qingyun's mouth, it was somewhat cold. Even so, Ling Xiao still had a trace of surprise on his face. This woman is finally enlightened. At this moment, Nian Qingyun's pretty face was slightly red, but her eyes were surging with bitterness. After all, she was in a situation where she was bound to die. The heartless great Tao and the teachings of her master were meaningless. Nian Qingyun really wanted to tell the young man above her that she had always loved him in her heart. This feeling was very strange, and it made her hesitant heart have an indescribable, carefree feeling. Beep. The destined woman's love has become obsession, and her Tao heart has been reconstructed. Congratulations to the host for plundering 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. As expected, this person will only let go of all worries when they are about to die. Qingyun, what nonsense are you talking about? There is no need for the next life. In this life, I want you to be by my side forever. In midair, Ling Xiao shouted sternly, and the Tao laws around him appeared. He slashed out again and landed on the ancient bell. Buzz! It was like a yellow bell that resounded from the 9 heavens. The spiritual curtain that shrouded the valley suddenly shook for a moment, and then it returned to normal. Ha ha! What a pair of lovebirds. Unfortunately, after today, they will be separated forever. Oh, I won't kill you. Nian Qingyun, you don't have to be afraid. I will make you feel very comfortable, and then later, I will let you see how he dies with your own eyes. Xia Chun smiled sinisterly and finally stopped hesitating. His figure flashed and instantly pounced on Nian Qingyun. Xia Chun, how dare you? At this moment, a trace of playfulness flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. The 3 types of Tao laws around him suddenly flourished and directly transformed into a giant sword that was thousands of feet long. It slashed toward the ancient bell again. The time was almost ripe. At this moment, Nian Qingyun was clearly in complete despair. And what he wanted to do, sister, don't be afraid. There is no danger that I can't solve with 1 sword. If there is then 2 swords. Chapter 316. Ling Xiao, I'm sorry. I've always pretended not to care, but I have already fallen in love with you. Nian Qingyun sighed softly. There seemed to be determination in her eyes. Let me take another look at you. Just 1 look. Treat it as our attachment to the path of immortality. Ling Xiao, I once used your tone to talk about deep feelings in my dreams. I was willing to exchange my Tao arts for floating. In that dream, I woke up laughing and crying. Only then did I understand. You are the leftover warmth in the cold night that makes one greedy. You are the spring scar that flows in my heart in the barren land. You are also the tribulation that I won't go through in my life. If life and death are only in an instant, even if time passes, time will pass. I'm only willing to be your loyal subject. Crack. Just as Nian Xingyun slowly closed her eyes, a strange golden light lit up in her soul sea. Suddenly, there was a crisp shattering sound in midair. Xiaoqin's footsteps suddenly stopped. Nian Xingyun also looked up in surprise. She saw countless cracks appearing on the originally indestructible golden spiritual screen. It spread like a spider web and was as dazzling as fireworks. Boom! Golden rays of light suddenly sprinkled down from the sky, one after another, fluttering in the air like butterflies, extremely beautiful. Nian Xingyun covered her red lips. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She raised her head just like that, watching the graceful figure descend from the sky and land beside her. His pitch-black eyes were filled with unspeakable affection. Xingyun, I'm here. Boom. With just a few words, all of Nian Xingyun's pretense of being reserved had been shattered. Finally, she didn't want to consider anyone's feelings anymore. There was no other path of immortality. What was the point of immortality? Nian Xingyun smiled and cried. She pressed her body tightly into Ling Zhao's arms. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the 3,000 great Daos couldn't compare to the warm sun on this young man's face. It doesn't matter if he's heartless or affectionate. Forget it. I just want to wake up every day and see his smiling face. That's enough. Master, I'm sorry. I won't go through this tribulation anymore. Don't be afraid. With me here, no one can hurt you. Ling Zhao's laughter was gentle as he gently patted the shoulder of the young girl in his arms. Finally, they could officially dual cultivate. Other than adding points to the system, Ling Zhao seemed to have suddenly found the motivation to cultivate. I'm not greedy for the mysteries of dual cultivation. I just want to work hard to increase my strength. Yes, Nian Xingyun nodded gently and closed her eyes to feel the warmth in his arms. Ling Zhao, shall we get married? So sudden? Before the smile on Ling Zhao's face disappeared, it completely froze. F***CK. It wasn't easy for me to break off the engagement, and you want to get married again? If I get married, how can I play happily with the other girls? I just want to watch the sunrise in the morning and admire the crescent moon in the evening with you, never to be apart again. With Nian Xingyun's temperament, she began to speak sweet nothings at this time. Ling Zhao simply shook his head and said in a gentle voice, Xingyun, the current me is not worthy of you. When I become emperor, I want the entire Shangzhou to celebrate our wedding. Beep! The chosen one's will has been shaken and is on the verge of turning into a demon. Congratulations to the host for plundering 300 luck points and 3,000 villain points. Hearing the melodious voice from the system, Ling Zhao discreetly glanced at Xia Chun, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. There are still 600 luck points left. Work harder, my little leak. You two, do you think I'm heir? Xia Chun looked at the two people who were being intimate with each other not far away with a vicious expression, and his eyes faintly flashed with scarlet. Once again, just when he was at his proudest moment, Ling Zhao appeared, and I've already taken off my clothes, but the beauty is in your arms. F***CK. Xia Chan silently pulled up his pants and raised his head to look at the Dao bell that Ling Zhao had shattered. An inexplicable sense of uneasiness arose in his heart. A Dao artifact. 3 swords, and he shattered a Dao artifact? Is Ling Zhao's strength really so tyrannical? Be careful. This Xia Chun is a little strange. Nian Xingyun lay in Ling Zhao's arms, her beautiful face a little pale. Little fool, don't you know your man's title? In a younger generation, I'm invincible. Ling Zhao lowered his head and placed his forehead on Nian Xingyun's forehead, gently rubbing it for a moment. Then, when Nian Xingyun's face gradually turned red, he suddenly kissed her lips with a deep gaze. The gauze rustled, and it felt a little rough. However, that warm touch caused Nian Qingyun's delicate body to tremble for no reason. Although the two of them had already had a deeper conversation, but this kiss was the first time that they were completely immersed in and completely opened up to each other. And gradually, Nian Qingyun's eyes began to blur, and the paleness on her face was completely replaced by a blush. You. Xia Chen stood in the distance, his face already lifeless and ferocious. Especially when Nian Qingyun took the initiative, it made him feel an indescribable humiliation. Damn slut. Damn Ling Xiao. You. However, just as Xia Chen's eyes gradually turned red, a hurried sound suddenly came from the distant sky. Saint. And Xia Chen's expression turned cold, and he turned his head to look at the sky. Shui Yu hurriedly descended from the sky and landed beside him. Then, she looked at Ling Xiao with some vigilance. Saint. Lin Shi was killed. What? Xia Chen's eyes flashed with a touch of gloominess. So, when he entered the secret realm this time, not only did he not manage to deal with Nian Qingyun, but also Lin Shi. This leak was harvested? Who did it? Ling Xiao's sister. Damn, Ling Xiao again. Xia Chen took a deep breath, and there was a faint flicker of light in the depths of his eyes, which looked incomparably evil. I'll kill Ling Xiao later, and you capture Nian Qingyun. At this time, Nian Qingyun had already exhausted all her spiritual energy and was not worth mentioning. As for Ling Xiao, from the moment he entered the secret realm, he was already a dead man. The magic of the soul-sucking ghost pearl, not to mention a young man with a powdery face, even an Emperor God expert would find it difficult to resist. Ling Xiao, blame it on your woman for being too fragrant. Ling Xiao, be careful. That Xia Chen's aura is very strange. It seems to be able to suppress the divine soul. Nian Qingyun reluctantly broke away from Ling Xiao's embrace, and the expression on her face became dignified again. At this time, she was already an arrow at the end of its flight, and there was nothing she could do to help Ling Xiao. As for that Xia Chen, he seemed to be hiding some trump cards, and he was extremely calm. You're still calling me Ling Xiao. Isn't it time to change the way you address me? Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, and his eyes were calm and gentle. Nian Qingyun was stunned for a moment, and then she lowered her head shyly. What time is it now? You still have a mood to joke. Wife, you stabbed me with your sword that day at Enlightenment Mountain. After we deal with this Xia Chen, shouldn't you compensate me well? Ling Xiao seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and Nian Qingyun's pretty face blushed even more. Although she knew that with Ling Xiao's strength, that injury was nothing much, Ling Xiao was still able to deal with it. She still felt a little guilty in her heart. In a very soft voice, Nian Qingyun softly said, Wife, how do you want to compensate me? Ling Xiao grinned, and a trace of evil flashed across his eyes. How else can I compensate you? Aren't you just thinking of him? Nian Qingyun glared at Ling Xiao in embarrassment, and she reached out to pinch his arm. It seems that my wife understands me. I can't take it anymore. You do it. Today. Only then did Xia Chen know. It turned out that his nature was that of a pickled fish. Sour again. Vegetable again. Superfluous again. Xia Chen looked up to the sky and shouted. However, just as he raised his leg and was about to pounce on Ling Xiao and Nian Qingyun, suddenly he felt an intense pain in his back. That's right, that part, commonly known as the kidney. Chapter 317. Xia Chen's ferocious face instantly turned dull. Am I weak? Or was I too high with Shui Yu? But what's with the smell of blood? Not far away, Nian Qingyun also looked at the woman behind Xia Chen in surprise. Then, she suddenly thought of something and turned to stare at Ling Xiao gloomily. Wife, it's none of my business. Humph. Nian Qingyun snorted. I'll deal with you tonight. Shui Yu, what are you doing? That was until Xia Chen turned his head in a daze and saw the dagger stuck in his waist. Suddenly, there was an inconceivable panic in the depths of his eyes. It's too similar. Back then, Emperor God Qing Yang failed to snatch his ghost pearl and fell out with him. Just when they were about to fight to the death, Qi Luo appeared. She walked to his side, her eyes filled with deep concern. Then she stabbed a knife into his heart. Xia Chun was at a loss and even confused. Why? Why did the woman I love stab me in the heart? Such a similar scene. It's exactly the same. However, the woman who stabbed him was not the one he loved. She was just an ant in his eyes. But even such an ant had betrayed him. But why? Could it be hatred born from love? Shui Yuer saw that I was interested in Yin Qingyun, so she stabbed my waist on purpose? No matter what, bitch. How dare you betray me? Beep. The chosen one feels despair, confusion, pain, and other complicated emotions. Congratulations to the host for plundering 100 luck points and 1,000 villain points. What was the biggest scar in the heart of a person who was betrayed by a woman? Of course, it was the woman who betrayed him. The best way to make him feel pain, anger, and despair was to let him experience the same pain again. In other words, he wanted him to experience the past that he didn't want to remember. Shui Yuer smiled sweetly. Her figure instantly retreated dozens of feet away. Holy Sun Xia, I'm sorry, but I feel that young Master Ling Xiao is the destined one. Only by following him can I preserve my life. Moreover, young Master said that as long as I kill you, he will give me a peerless divine artifact. What? You? Xia Qin's eyes instantly turned red. His heart began to tremble and shatter. The aura around his body gradually became chaotic and violent. In the end, it even carried a trace of indescribable evil. Was his life getting cheaper and cheaper? But now, it was only worth a peerless divine artifact. But although the knife had pierced his waist, it was not enough to kill him. With Shui Yuer's cultivation, how could she not see this? Was she trying to humiliate me on purpose? Beep, the child of destiny's Dao heart is on the verge of collapse. Congratulations to host for plundering 200 luck points and 2,000 villain points. Good. Ling Xiao, Shui Yuer, I will not let you off today. Xia Chun took a deep breath and tried to suppress the resentment in his heart. Qi Luo's betrayal had already broken his heart. He just didn't expect. It turned out that all women in the world were the same. The feeling of rubbing salt on the wound was very painful, very good, and very exciting. Xia Chen lowered his head and laughed softly. However, the moment he lifted his head, a strange blood-black spiritual light suddenly shot up into the sky from his body. It faintly transformed into a white-boned shadow in midair. Ling Xiao had never seen such a gloomy power filled with death intent before. But inexplicably, he felt a little scared. Beep, the child of destiny has merged with the evil treasure and fallen into the ghost Dao. Congratulations to host for plundering 200 luck points and 2,000 villain points. Heaven and earth trembled, and the mountains and rivers shattered. At this time, Xia Chen's cultivation had directly entered the late stage of Paoang. He was only one step away from becoming a divine general. Originally, he was a little afraid of the evil treasure of the Ghost Clan, or it could be said that he was still a decent person in his heart. He had an instinctive hatred for the evil races like the Ghost Clan. Therefore, even though he had obtained the treasure of the Ghost Clan, he had not merged with it. He had only placed it in his sea of soul as a defense. But today, no. But after being repeatedly humiliated by Ling Xiao in the past few days, his temperament had unknowingly changed, especially when he unintentionally used the soul-sucking ghost pearl on the Enlightenment Mountain and devoured the power of Xiao Tu's divine soul. In fact, he had been corrupted by the ghost Qi within the pearl. In the past, Xia Chun was a god emperor of the upper realm who had comprehended the slaughter Dao law. No matter whether it was his Dao heart or divine soul, they were incomparable to ordinary people. But now he was just a Paoang cultivator. How could he suppress the power of the evil pearl? Unknowingly, his temperament had been affected, but Xia Chun himself was unaware of it. From this moment on, the name of Sha Di became a thing of the past. Although Xia Chun yearned to kill, he could no longer maintain his original heart. A true expert would practice killing, but he would not sink into sin. But now, Xiachen only wanted to kill all the living things in this world, not to prove his Tao, but to vent the endless resentment in his heart. Husband, Xiachen's aura is a little strange. Nian Xingyun's jade-like hand unconsciously grabbed Ling Zhao's arm. It was unknown when this cold and arrogant goddess of the Tao Palace seemed to have changed. It was as if, wherever Ling Xiao was, she could finally put down all her defenses and worries. As long as she stood behind him, there was nothing in this world that could be called a tribulation. He would resist all the wind and rain. It was a very inexplicable feeling, but it was really reassuring. My wife, the great Tao, is emotionless. It depends on one's understanding, but you must believe that evil will never prevail over good. Ling Xiao reached out and gently pinched Nian Xingyun's delicate nose. Go back and wait for me. Today, I will kill this evil for the world. Okay. Nian Xingyun nodded obediently. This was something that would never happen in the past. She had always been a proud and stubborn woman. She was never willing to stand behind anyone. But in front of Ling Xiao, she was willing to be the woman behind him. Watch him conquer. Watch him display his might. Watch him command the wind and clouds, rule the world, and crush all enemies in the world. As for her, as long as she followed in his footsteps and did not fall too far behind, it would be fine. Ling Xiao, today, I will use your life as a sacrifice for my rebirth. Xiachen's voice was inexplicably gloomy. Even his face had become a little gray and pale. There seemed to be a ghostly fire dancing in his eyes, flickering with a frightening dark light. Around him, an illusory, ghostly figure loomed, surrounded by a monstrous, murderous aura. At this moment, Xiachen really had the power of a ghost demon. You were reborn again? Aren't you tired? Holy Sun Xia, why don't I send you through a proper reincarnation and experience a true rebirth? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. There was no trace of fear on his face. He had already seen the Ghost Clan's supreme treasure. Therefore, he knew almost all of Xiachen's methods. Did he want to kill him with an evil treasure that could absorb divine souls? Childish. Not to mention that there was an ancient supreme treasure in Ling Zhao's soul sea, an innate spiritual item. Even with the current level of Ling Zhao's divine soul, the current Xiachen would not be able to absorb it just because he wanted to. Otherwise, this evil treasure would break the balance of cultivation and affect the plot. Arrogant and ignorant, Xiachen's face was ferocious. Finally, he did not hesitate anymore. The golden saber in his hand slashed down towards Ling Zhao's head. Buzz! At this moment, a terrifying ghostly aura surged into the sky. The saber intent was dazzling and instantly tore through space. It was as if the Milky Way had fallen to the ground and turned the world upside down. Arrogance requires capital. Holy Sun Xia, the word ignorant is the most appropriate word to describe you. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and formed a seal with one hand. All of a sudden, the space before him began to crumble apart. At the same time, an extremely hot aura quietly filled the entire valley. Chapter 3:18. This is the spiritual fire of heaven and earth. It's the aura of the spiritual fire. Xiachen's face turned gloomy. Obviously, Ling Xiao had just obtained this spiritual fire, because he did not feel any aura of the spiritual fire from Ling Xiao. If his guess was right, this spirit fire was actually the greatest creation in this mystic realm. It was also the reason why Lin Shi came in. Originally, he wanted to subdue Nian Xingyun and then kill his little brother. With the beauty and the spiritual treasure in his hands, this trip would be complete. Unexpectedly, he had already planned everything out, but in the end, it all ended up benefiting that bastard Ling Xiao. All of a sudden, he felt that Shui Yu was not acting when she scolded him. Damn, I have lived for hundreds of years. How can I be played by a kid? Xiachun, you have done many unjust things. Today, I will punish you on behalf of the heavens and send you back to reincarnation. Ling Xiao shouted coldly, and the seal in his hands changed. The monstrous flame suddenly turned into a lotus shadow. The Tao pattern on it flickered and contained the true meaning of destruction. This world annihilation fire lotus was the most classic move in the burning scripture. As more spiritual fires were fused, the color of the fire lotus would change, and its power would become more terrifying. However, Ling Xiao did not intend to fuse with the spiritual fire for the time being. He was not at all interested in the pain experienced by the Chosen One. It was enough to have one spiritual fire of heaven and earth. I'm not walking on anyone's path. There's no need to force it. Or damn, I'm not the Chosen One, and I can't find the spiritual fire. Once Lin Shi dies, who knows if there are other leaks like him? Why should I waste my time on such a cultivation method that can't be cultivated to the end? As for why Ling Xiao did not use his strongest move to kill Xia Chun, it was because it was too easy. Who would be moved? Nian Xinyan finally stopped hiding her love for him. Of course, she would take the opportunity to strengthen their relationship. Besides, the system's final notification had not come yet. The saber intent swept out like a white-boned dragon, revealing an indestructible sharpness. Today, no matter how many tricks you have up your sleeve, you will still die for sure. My name, Xia Chun, has already resounded throughout the 9 heavens. How can a tiny ant like you block my path to immortality? After a brief moment of shock, Xia Chen's face regained its calmness. Above his head, the vast blade light finally shattered the void and collided with the fire lotus. Instantly, the world dimmed and the sun and moon sank. An incomparably terrifying aura suddenly swept out from the valley, shattering the surrounding barren mountains and ancient forests. Blinding flames fell from the sky like fireworks. Wherever it landed, the earth was pitch black and the trees were all burned. On the other hand, Xia Chen's blade light crushed the void and destroyed the spiritual flames as it descended towards Ling Xiao's head. Ha ha! Ling Xiao, aren't you very strong? Let's see what other methods you have to stop me. Xia Chun threw his head back and laughed, his eyes filled with mockery. In front of him, Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He gently raised his hand and then slammed it down. Above the blade light, a thunder sun appeared out of nowhere, intimidating the heavens. Then, under Xia Chen's dumbfounded gaze, the saber-intent bone dragon was directly crushed, and it finally fell into the valley. Boom! The earth seemed to have cracked open, and a 1,000-foot-long abyss appeared between Ling Xiao and Xia Chun. Silence filled the entire world, and Xia Chen's face gradually revealed a look of intense disbelief. How is this possible? How could he shatter his saber intent of Tao, law, so easily? Xia Chen, even if you are a reincarnated God Emperor, you are still as weak as an ant in my eyes. Ling Xiao rose into the air and stood in the void like a god who judged sins. He was cold and arrogant, without a trace of emotion. If I want to kill you, 1 slash is enough. Arrogant. Xia Chun gritted his teeth. The battle blade in his hand began to shine with a golden light, and a faint, ghostly howl could be heard. It was eerie and sacred. Suddenly, his face turned grave and dull, and then a look of intense shock appeared on his face. At this moment, a pitch-black ancient saber suddenly appeared in Ling Xiao's hand. Then, he gently slashed at Xia Chun. There seemed to be an illusory figure standing in the void behind him. His expression was indifferent, but the profoundness in his eyes made people feel as if they could see reincarnation, destruction, absolute beginning, and the great path. At this moment, Xia Chun seemed to see the end of the universe, the beginning of heaven and earth. No, Xia Chen's voice was filled with terror. No matter how confident he was, he still felt a strong sense of death and despair when facing this saber strike. I don't believe it. I'm a dignified god-slayer, and I can't even kill Qin Yang and Qi Luo. What can you, a mere ant, do to me? Boom! Ghostly qi began to swirl around Xia Chun. The originally illusory, ghostly figure suddenly solidified and expanded. A vertical eye suddenly opened on his face, and a blood-red evil bead emitted endless evil. Xiao Chen's face suddenly turned pale, and even his skin became strangely dry. Blood sacrifice technique? This Ghost Clan supreme treasure is indeed evil. Ling Zhao's eyes were filled with amusement. He watched as the vertical eye of the ghostly figure shot out a beam of blood-red light and collided with the primordial demonic blade. As expected, these children of destiny used the same trick. It seemed that they were not willing to use their trump cards until the very end. Crack! Xiao Chen's figure was almost instantly sent flying. Ling Xiao only looked at the ghostly figure behind him with interest. In the next moment, one of the ghostly figure's arms suddenly fell to the ground, turned into endless ghostly qi, and dissipated. Ah! At the same time, Xiao Chen suddenly screamed. One of his arms also fell to the ground. How is this possible? How is this possible? Xiao Chen's head was instantly covered in cold sweat. He even looked at Ling Xiao with a trace of fear in his eyes. The soul-sucking ghost pearl was his greatest reliance. However, even though he used the power of blood sacrifice to activate its power, he was still severely injured by Ling Zhao's slash. Beep! The child of destiny's mind has collapsed. His providence has been reset to 0. Kill him now, and you will receive an additional reward. Here it comes. Ling Zhao's lips curled into a sinister smile. Finally, the Tao heart of this god emperor who had returned through possession was shattered by him. Children of destiny like this had always been arrogant. After all, in his previous life, he was indeed boundless. Now that he was reborn in this lower realm, how could he look down on a native like Ling Xiao? What a pity. He probably would not have thought that this native Ling Xiao came from the world that created them. I have a brush that can write mountains, rivers, sun, moon, demons, ghosts, gods, and demons. I have a key that can draw the heavenly Tao, the universe, and thousands of races. I say that the heavenly Tao no longer exists, and there are no more saints in this world. I say that there is no Buddha in this world, and all of you have fallen to become demons. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, his white robe wild. He looked at Xiao Chun with a calm and indifferent gaze, with a hint of mockery. Now, I sentence you not to reincarnate. Buzz. The 7 Tao laws began to form a river of stars from a void. The sound of Tao could be heard for thousands of miles, and immortal clouds covered the horizon. No, impossible. How is this possible? No, I'm not resigned to this. Ling Xiao, even if I die, I want you to die with me. Xiao Chen's face turned from blank to shocked, and finally turned into a mournful resentment. Then his physical body began to shatter, and his Tao laws began to burn. The vertical eye of the ghostly figure standing behind him suddenly released a wisp of extreme eeriness. Chapter 319. This aura, Ling Xiao frowned slightly. Finally, he stopped hesitating and pressed his palm down. 7 Tao laws gathered in one palm, and heaven and earth collapsed instantly. However, although Xiao Chun was surprised, there was no trace of panic on his face. I set up this curse with my blood and soul. Wherever I look, all living beings will perish, their souls will scatter, and their names will be erased from heaven and earth. An ancient chant slowly sounded from Xiao Chen's mouth. In the ghostly shadow's vertical pupils, a wisp of bloody light seemed to be gathered from the blood of all living beings and turned into a strange cursed seal. Countless mournful and desperate voices of resentful spirits inexplicably rang in Ling Zhao's ears. What a vicious sorcery! Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly. The lightning outside his body rushed into the sky like an ancient thunder god, trying to suppress this sorcery. Seeing this, Xiao Chen's face became more resentful, and there was even a hint of mockery. It's useless, Ling Xiao. This pearl devours the souls of billions of living beings and is ignited with my blood essence. How can you resist it? Despair and fear. Ha 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 ha. I will sleep, but you will be destroyed. Heaven and earth suddenly darkened, and a bloody light covered the sky. Countless cracks appeared in the void instantly. Thousands of ghostly patterns evolved into a cage, completely sealing Ling Xiao's figure. Ling Xiao. In the valley, Nian Qingyun looked at the evil runes in the ghostly shadow's vertical pupils in horror, and a touch of confusion suddenly appeared on her pretty face. She seemed to be familiar with this fluctuation, but it was clearly her first time seeing it. Nian Qingyun had a premonition that Ling Xiao could not resist this evil curse. However, just as she rose into the air and was about to block in front of Ling Xiao, a golden light suddenly began to spread in the depths of her eyes. Ghost Clan, soul-sucking ghost pearl. Crack. Suddenly, there seemed to be a strange sound in Yin Qingyun's soul sea, and a majestic memory instantly surged in. Then, the aura on her body inexplicably became ethereal and empty. Ling Xiao, die! Xiao Chun roared and laughed wildly. There was an indescribable joy in his red eyes. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that his new life would come to an end so quickly. But before that, being able to personally witness Ling Xiao being devoured by tens of thousands of souls and unable to return to the cycle of reincarnation, this feeling was truly wonderful. Following Xia Chen's shout, a strand of scarlet light suddenly blossomed from that ghostly figure's vertical eye. At first, it was just a wisp, but it instantly covered the sky. The evil contained within it made even Ling Xiao feel a strong sense of unease. The blue sky collapsed, turning into the color of blood. Wherever the bloody light passed, there seemed to be countless ghosts and devils appearing, chanting evil scriptures. As expected of a god emperor's possession, as expected of the ghost clan's most precious treasure, this soul curse was probably not something that the current Ling Xiao could resist. Wunny. However, how could his life be lost here? I have tens of thousands of demons. I can sacrifice my life at any time. How could a mere attack stop me from ascending to the 9 heavens? The glazed ancient pagoda emitted a dim light, and a golden Buddha figure gradually bloomed in the sky. Right at this moment, a fair and jade-like hand suddenly pierced through the void and gently pulled him behind her. Ghost Clan, you're courting death. A strange coldness flashed in Yin Qingyun's eyes, and her body emitted an extreme golden light. Above her head, a golden palace gradually took shape. There seemed to be tens of thousands of immortal weapons, layers of divine wood, dragons and phoenixes soaring, and hundreds of rays of light. There was an indescribable and terrifying aura quietly rippling through heaven and earth. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, especially the majestic palace. It was as huge as a border, as if it was another universe, standing at the end of the void. At this moment, the mountains and rivers collapsed, the cycle of eras changed, and the void turned into a seal. All living things were as insignificant as ants. Nian Qingyun stood in the void like a celestial god of the 9 heavens, and there were tens of thousands of strange phenomena around her. Ling Xiao's heart trembled slightly, and he understood something. He seemed to understand why Nian Qingyun's providence was so terrifying. This divine watchtower was obviously not an item of this world. Nian Qingyun's aura also began to rise rapidly. Perhaps her identity was even more terrifying than Ling Xiao had imagined. Divine Lady of the upper world, training in the lower world, and her memories were sealed? Buzz! At this moment, a loud buzzing sound suddenly came from the sky above the mystic realm. Immediately, a spirit wheel with tens of thousands of flickering Tao patterns appeared out of thin air. It was enshrouded in divine mist, and spiritual light shone everywhere. In just an instant, that wisp of evil scarlet light disappeared into thin air. Xia Chen's figure also fell from the sky, and the ghost shadow outside his body shattered, and he no longer had any power. So, you're the one who ruined my plan. In the void thousands of miles away, a delicate voice that was filled with endless anger suddenly resounded. Ling Xiao raised his head, only to see a pair of eyes that were as cold as 10,000 years old ice staring fixedly at him. An illusory, celestial figure slowly stepped out from the divine watchtower, and the Red Emperor's robe shone with divine light. Although he couldn't see her face clearly, she gave off a very familiar feeling. "I'll remember you." Then, the celestial figure waved her hand gently, and the Tao patterns in the heavens floated, and the divine sound of the great Tao resounded. A heavenly path extended from the top of her head, connecting the divine watchtower and this world. Nian Qingyun frowned slightly, and her face flashed with a touch of coldness. Finally, her gaze landed on Ling Xiao. "Ling Xiao, I'll let bygones be bygones, but you'd better not appear in front of me again." Buzz. Between heaven and earth, spiritual light shone brightly and turned into a divine sun. Nian Xingyun rose and stepped onto the divine path, walking step by step toward the golden watchtower. When her figure completely overlapped with the red figure and became one person, she turned her head and looked deeply at Ling Xiao. A celestial wind blew past, and her red robe fluttered in the wind, making her look enchanting. And that blurry face finally became clear at this moment. In the next moment, Ling Xiao suddenly felt a sharp pain in his left eye. Blood immediately flowed down, dyeing half his face red. This pain came suddenly, and it pierced through his soul. It was indescribable. In front of the ancient forest, Xia Qin's body trembled slightly. He struggled to get up, and his eyes were filled with horror. Although it was only for a moment, he still recognized that celestial figure in red. No wonder he could meet a woman with the same constitution in this lower realm. So it's her. But how could she break through the realm barrier so easily? Could it be that she had already taken that step in the past few hundred years? Impossible. Xia Chun was disappointed, and his eyes flashed with hatred. When he saw Ling Xiao covering his eye and looking like he was in pain, he did not hesitate anymore and turned to escape in his soul form. Now that his physical body was shattered and his soul was bloodied, he was no match for Ling Xiao. In fact, any Eastern Border prodigy could easily crush him to death. He could only find a place to stay in the Pearl temporarily. He hoped that the next fated person could pick him up. However, just as Xia Chan was about to step out of the valley, his footsteps suddenly stopped. At this moment, he seemed to see the world in front of him turn completely red. Above his head, a pitch-black Guyu stretched across the sky, emitting endless evil light. Gulp! Xiaoqin suddenly felt a strong sense of uneasiness. This sense of uneasiness was not the fear of death, but the hesitation of seeing hell. He slowly turned around and looked at the figure that was descending from the sky. His eyes suddenly narrowed. At this moment, Ling Xiao's face had returned to its usual calmness. Blood coagulated on one side of his face, making him look indescribably evil. What made Xiaoqian even more terrified was that the young man's eyes were actually revealing two different colors. One was as black as ink, and there was no trace of any other color. Chapter 320. Don't come over. I'll give you this bead. Please spare my life. Xia Qin's body trembled. If not for the fact that he had lost his physical body, he would have wet his pants. Ling Xiao, I know that woman. I'm willing to acknowledge you as my big brother. No, I'm willing to be your slave. I have land in the western border. I'll give it all to you. Give me a chance. I can't die. I still want. Sink into pain. Ling Xiao's tone was indifferent, but contained endless coldness. Xiaofeng's clone was destined to be powerful. People who had been reborn in the upper realm were far superior to the natives of the Shenzhou continent in terms of temperament, means, and treasures. As for Nian Qingyun, it seemed that she was just a clone of the woman in red. Now that she had returned to her original body, it was just a part of the trial for her. However, her Taoist heart had been shattered, and her obsession with love was not something that could be easily erased. Although Nian Qingyun had awakened her original soul, her words were emotionless. But if she had really cut off her relationship with him, why would she suppress the evil light? And why would she look back at him at the last moment? Some things were more painful the more they were suppressed. A clone had more than 10,000 points of luck. How terrifying was the woman in red's original body. It turned out that the path to immortality was really vast and magnificent, and it was full of motivation. Buzz. A blank look suddenly appeared on Xia Chen's face. Then, he seemed to see a fear that he had never seen before, and his face instantly became twisted and ferocious. In his vision, Qin Yang and Qi Luo were entangled in death, tossing and turning. All the people he trusted were beheaded and lying under the two of them. Those heads that had died with everlasting regret caused Xia Chen to feel utterly disheartened, and guilt arose in his heart to the point tears flowed down his face. No, no. The killing was still going on, and the figures in his memory were beheaded one by one, falling into a pool of blood. Before they died, they looked at him with resentment and unwillingness. But there was nothing he could do. He could only watch helplessly. No, no. When his spirit dissipated and the world was dyed red, Xia Chen's aura finally disappeared completely from the world along with the illusion. Ling Xiao casually waved his hand and swept the soul that was about to dissipate into his knowledge sea. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Child of Destiny. You have obtained a quarter of the realm's seed, the supreme grade divine wings of Tempest, and one divine grade formation-breaking talisman. Earlier, by coincidence, he'd actually accidentally opened up the Blood Moon Forbidden Zone, but it wasn't complete. Perhaps it was because he didn't have any feelings, so how could he be in pain? But why did the Blood Realm open? At this point, Ling Xiao had already figured everything out. Nian Xingyun was most likely the model of the incarnation of the Almighty. The red-robed woman originally wanted to use the body of reincarnation to temper the Tao laws and comprehend the true meaning of the great Tao. Unexpectedly, Nian Xingyun's flawless Tao heart had actually been shattered by him, and she had fallen in love with him. In this way, not only was this training meaningless, it even affected her Tao heart. Moreover, even if it was just a wisp of her soul, it was still the manifestation of her true soul. If it did not fuse, it would be incomplete. Fusion would cause demonic miasma in the heart. Right now, this fairy of the ninth heaven must be feeling extremely conflicted. Boom! At the end of heaven and earth, in a magnificent ancient palace, spirit fog curled up like the rolling sea. At this moment, in the depths of the palace, a furious roar suddenly sounded. Damned ant! How dare you spoil my grand plan? A beautiful red-robed woman with a golden face was sitting in the ancient palace, and her eyes were as cold as ice, emitting endless killing intent. In front of her, Nian Xingyun stood calmly in front of the palace, and there was no trace of panic or surprise in her eyes. Look at what you've done. We are of the same body and origin, so how can there be a difference between you and me? Nian Xingyun's voice was cold, and her eyes were indifferent. Humph. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You're just a mere soul incarnation. Wait until I refine your obsession, then I'll kill that demon with my own hands. Let's see how he can mess with my Tao heart. In the end, the red-robed woman waved her hand lightly, and Nian Xingyun suddenly turned into a wisp of clear light and merged into the top of her head. In the next moment, a terrifying wave of energy rippled out quietly. Outside the palace, all the experts in armor instantly prostrated themselves on the ground, and their eyes were filled with reverence. She had planned for 500 years and created 9 incarnations, but in the end, she still failed. Although this incarnation had comprehended the ethereal Tao law and awakened the chaotic spiritual divine body, it still couldn't complete her chaos great Tao. All her efforts were in vain. She had no time to arrange a new reincarnation trial. Damn it. If you ascend to this world one day, I'll skin you, pull out your tendons, extract your divine soul, and refine you with heavenly fire for 100 years to vent my hatred. Blurg. Inexplicably, the red-robed woman's face suddenly turned pale, and even the resentment in her heart quietly dissipated. A blurry face appeared in front of her. Although she couldn't see it clearly, she felt inexplicably warm. How could it be? Heavenly Sword, Immortal Sect. Suddenly, A sword light tore through the sky, and an extremely cold aura covered thousands of miles in the sky. The originally celestial ancient sect suddenly felt as if winter was coming. Even the lush ancient trees and spiritual herbs were frozen and withered at this moment. Duan Wuyong, the master of heavenly sword immortal, suddenly opened his eyes and disappeared in a flash. At the same time, many powerful and ancient auras walked out of caves and ancient palaces and looked toward the heavenly sword peak. There, a beautiful figure in green stood with her hands clasped behind her back, coldly looking at the sky in the distance. Although her appearance was beautiful and she looked young, the aura emitted from her body faintly contained an aura of the vicissitudes of time. "Who are you?" Duan Wuyong landed from the sky and looked at the girl in front of him warily. At this moment, the master of heavenly sword immortal could feel the aura of 2 Tao laws from her. Sword and extreme ice. This kind of Tao law that transcended the 5 elements was terrifying. It was as if she could freeze the world with a glance if she wanted to. But her aura was only at the late stage of Paong. Late stage of Paong? She broke through again. A 16-year-old at the late stage of Paong was a monster in the Shenzhou state. But this level of monster seemed to be a little too much. How long had she been cultivating? In 3 months, she broke through from the Soul Sea realm to the late stage of Paong. She was only 1 step away from becoming a divine general. She had comprehended 2 Tao laws, and one of them was the extremely mysterious Tao law of extreme ice. "Master, what are you talking about?" Hearing the voice behind her, Yi Qingchan's eyes seemed to flicker with an icy blue light, and a sweet smile suddenly appeared on her pretty face. Qingchan, what happened to you just now?" Duan Wuyong's eyes narrowed. He had set up a trap in Yi Qingchan's soul sea to prevent her divine soul from being forcefully possessed by demons. This was also the protection that all the ancient sects in the Shenzhou would give their disciples. Now, this trap had not been broken, which meant Yi Qingchan had not been possessed. But her aura was obviously old and terrifying. Could it be a reincarnator? Just now? "Oh, yes, Master, I have mastered the Tao law of extreme ice. I was about to tell you." Yi Qingchan's eyes flashed with confusion, and Duan Wuyong's expression finally softened. No matter what kind of secret this disciple of his was hiding, it did not seem to be a bad thing now. The stronger she was, the longer the legacy of the Sky Sword Immortal sect would be. Even if she was a reincarnator, she would definitely stand at the peak of the world in the future. A casual protection would be enough for the Sky Sword Immortal sect to prosper. "Oh, very good. Qingchan, I have never seen such a talent in my life. If you have any doubts, you can tell me at any time." As soon as Duan Wuyong finished speaking, Yi Qingchan's lips curled into a smile. "Master, I do have a favor to ask of you." "What is it?" "You see, I have been in seclusion for so long, and I have no chance to gain experience. I plan to go down the mountain for a while to see the scenery of this world." Yi Qingchan stuck out her tongue and said with a pleading expression, The situation in the eastern border is chaotic now, and there are battles everywhere. If you go down a mountain now," Duan Wuyong frowned slightly. If it were in the past, he would not object to his disciple going down the mountain to gain experience. But Yi Qingchan did not go down the mountain to gain experience. She most likely went for Ling Xiao. His Sky Sword Immortal sect finally had such a heaven-defying genius. If she was kidnapped by that bastard, "Oh, Master, can't you just give me a few more life-saving trump cards?" Yi Qingchan's eyes flashed cunningly. She shook Duan Wuyong's arm and said pitifully. Chapter 321. A trump card to save my life? Duan Wuyong raised his eyebrows, feeling uneasy. But when he saw the anticipation in Yi Qingchan's eyes, he didn't try to persuade her. It was better to let her go. If he tried to stop her, it would be counterproductive. It was said that Ling Xiao had confessed to Nian Qingyun, the goddess of the Tao Palace, at the top of Mount Enlightenment. Yi Qingchan would find out about this bastard's reputation if she asked around. At that time, they would naturally be thoroughly disappointed in him. Okay, this soul transformation talisman has sealed one of my divine soul incarnations, which is comparable to the divine emperor. Keep this message talisman well. If you need anything, send me a message immediately. And this exquisite 7 orifices pagoda is a defensive treasure. It can save your life at a critical moment. Duan Wuyong took out many spirit treasures from his Chinquan bag one by one, and Yi Qingchan's beautiful face suddenly bloomed with a beautiful smile. Sir, I hope you like the gifts I brought for you. Duan Wuyong scratched his head until Yi Qingchan was far away. He felt that the scene in front of him was familiar. Are you still unwilling to merge with me? But just as Yi Qingchan walked out of the sky, sword immortal sect, and stood on the branch of an ancient tree at the foot of the mountain, a strange female voice suddenly sounded in her mind. Merge with you, or be controlled by you? The smile on Yi Qingchan's face had long disappeared, and it turned into an extremely cold expression. Beneath her, the ancient forest instantly turned into an ice sculpture. Even the living beings within were frozen at the moment when the deep blue light shone in her eyes. Why don't you understand? You are me, and I am you. What's the difference? Only by merging with me can we awaken our memories and awaken our strength. The voice was filled with anger. She could forcibly control Yi Qingchan's divine soul, but once she did so, it would be difficult for her to return to her peak state. Haha, you're me? I like Lord Ling Xiao. Why do you hate him so much? Yi Qingchan shook her head and smiled disdainfully. She discovered that as her cultivation grew stronger, this inexplicable soul would gradually fuse with her. This fusion was not something she could resist. However, with his cultivation sealed, he was nothing more than a cripple to the young master. Why did he have to stand beside him? It was a very contradictory feeling. Therefore, she didn't want to wait any longer. She wanted to stay by young master's side right now. There's something wrong with that Ling Xiao's aura. He's definitely not as simple as you think. In fact, the ancient soul's voice was filled with fear. Although she had only seen Ling Xiao a few times, she could vaguely sense a trace of an evil and familiar aura from him. That kind of aura had once consigned her to eternal damnation. The only thing that puzzled her was, who is Ling Xiao? Didn't that person already? I don't care who he is. In front of me, he is the Lord Ling Xiao who protected me, cherished me, and gave me countless opportunities. If you don't want me to do it, I will do it. If you have the ability, you can forcibly fuse with me. Yi Qingchan sneered and suddenly stepped out, heading down the mountain. You will regret it sooner or later. The ancient soul let out a sorrowful cry before disappearing into thin air. Yi Qingchan was still in control of his body. She didn't dare to be too impatient because there was a secret hidden in her heart that could overturn the entire Shengzhou. In the center of the Shengzhou, on a towering mountain, dense spirit qi had turned into a sea of clouds. Ancient trees towered into the sky, bearing mystical fruits. Endless Taoist rhymes covered thousands of miles of the sky. This was the heavenly Tao sacred mountain, which was regarded as a sacred place by all the forces in the Shengzhou. At this moment, a golden-robed figure stood on the mountain peak with his hands behind his back. Behind him stood an old Taoist. That's right. This aura can't be wrong. Go. Yes. A solemn look flashed across the old Taoist's eyes. He turned around and disappeared. In the secret realm, Ling Xiao looked at the blood-red ghost pearl and the crimson gold dragon talisman in his hand. There wasn't much joy on his face. Lin Shi, Xia Chun, Ling Tian, Su Yan, and Bai Ling. In one secret realm, he had taken care of 5 people with heavenly fate. Although the process was a little complicated, he had gained a lot this time. The soul-sucking ghost pearl, divine wings of tempest, immemorial emperor flames, water, fire, origin, darkness, and massacre laws had directly improved his strength. Not to mention, he had also found a way to become a heavenly fate body. Empress Wushuang, Gu Chao Ci. This was the name in Xia Chen's memory. At the same time, he finally understood why Xiachun had such a strong obsession with Nianqingyan. Chaotic divine body. It was said that the Shengzhou upper world was called the Green Wave Realm. There were many dynasties and ancient sects. Experts roamed freely, and martial arts reigned supreme. The God Emperor was the threshold for the younger generation to compete for. Each ancient sect had a saint stage expert. That was a world where war was waged and cultivation was not allowed. Geniuses came in large numbers, and monsters were everywhere. It was a fascinating place. Gu Chaoxiai was the successor of an everlasting dynasty. Her talent was unparalleled, and she dominated her generation. Even with Xia Chen's strength, he was crushed in front of her. However, Gu Chaoxiai had shown her face since the day she came to the world. She had never revealed her celestial appearance. This undoubtedly made her name even more mysterious. She was cold and arrogant, and no one could enter her eyes. She was decisive in killing. When she came of age, she took charge of a dynasty alone and commanded the world. Gu Chaoxiai? Ling Zhao's lips curled into a cold smile. He looked up at the sky, deep in thought. If he wanted to create a heavenly fate body as soon as possible, the Green Wave Realm was the starting point. It seemed that he had to reach the God Emperor level quickly before he could think of a way to enter that realm. However, before that, he still had to deal with the Saint sect. Ever since Liang Yi told him about the secret of the Sky Demon's true body, he had always felt that there was an extremely shocking secret hidden in the Saint sect. But what was it? Ling Xiao now had 8 types of Dao laws. As long as he integrated one more type of Dao law, the Sky Demon's true body would enter the 3rd transformation realm and open a new demonic body form. The demonic body had 9 transformations, and each transformation represented a new form. The Sky Demon Palace had 9 great demon generals, and the demonic shadow outside Liang Yi was an evil dragon. What was the connection between them? The bloodthirsty ghost pearl entered his soul sea and emitted a gloomy bloodlight, which shone together with the soul palace formed by the Panga stone. At this moment, Ling Zhao's divine soul was really impregnable. It could attack or defend. Young master, Shui Yu Er's figure rushed out of the ancient forest and stood beside Ling Xiao. She seemed to be afraid of him. She had seen how terrifying Nian Qingyuan was. Perhaps only an immortal who could suppress the heavens and the earth was worthy of this young master in front of her. Let's go. It's time to end our trip to the secret realm, Ling Xiao said calmly. He looked at the valley in front of him and walked toward the fire tribe. Chapter 322. The Land of the Fire Tribe. A group of mystic realm experts gathered around and watched as Yishun and the others skillfully slaughtered their clansmen, set up a pot, and boiled water. Then, they added spiritual pepper, spiritual onion, and spiritual ginger as the base. On the side, Yilang waved his sword and chopped a dead dragon into pieces on the ground before throwing it into the pot. 4 dragon claws and 2 white kidneys were roasted over the fire until golden brown and sprinkled with some red powder. Although there was some sorrow in his eyes, a trace of tears flowed from the corner of his mouth. Slurp. Around them, a group of fire tribe experts used their spirit chi to cook the meat in the pot. They controlled the fire perfectly. Smells so good. Bai Ling's eyes were already filled with greed as the smell of meat drifted in the air. Suddenly, there was a rush of wind in the distance. Ling Xiao, Ling Tian, Yi Sun Su Yin, Fu Yinyao, and Xiao Tu descended from the sky and landed in front of everyone. It does smell good. Brother Yishun, thank you. Ha! Greetings, young master, young masters, and young ladies. The one we killed today has a great background. He is the 6th son of the previous leader of the Flood Dragon tribe, Yi Lu. His nickname is Lu. He has a pure bloodline and is at the Divine Lord realm. Yishun bowed to Ling Xiao, and the latter just nodded calmly. Then, under the guidance of the fire tribe leader, they walked into a hall not far away. Ling Xiao had no interest in the origin of the fire tribe. Now that they had submitted to him, it was just icing on the cake. If not for the slave mark left by the ancient emperor, this tribe would have been wiped out. However, seeing the group of mystic realm experts being so respectful to Ling Xiao, Su Yin and the others suddenly felt a little depressed. It seemed like no matter where this young master went, he would become the center of attention. The divine emperor bowed his head and cooked a dragon to congratulate him. How many people in the younger generation of the Shangzhou could compare to this? Even a saint of the sacred sect could not compare to him. Unknowingly, Su Yan's eyes were filled with joy. "Brother, why do you look so worried? And is she sister-in-law?" Bai Ling sat beside Ling Xiao, a trace of concern in her dark eyes. She was naturally referring to Su Yan, especially when the latter looked at Ling Xiao with such tenderness. It reminded her of the young girl that Lin she had entrusted to brother Ling Xiao. Su Yan blushed and hurriedly waved his hands. There was an indescribable sense of panic in his heart. "I'm fine," Ling Xiao smiled indifferently. Beside him, Su Yan looked as if he wanted to say something. "Young master, I heard earlier that Xia Chun chased after the goddess and caused her to perish." Su Yan's beautiful eyes flickered with a trace of sadness and anticipation. "Yes." During the battle in the valley just now, Ling Xiao did not deliberately conceal his aura, so it was inevitable that he would be noticed. Moreover, he had killed Xia Chun to protect Nianqinyan. He had originally wanted to use the ethereal Dao Palace to eliminate Yuan Yu's sacred land. In this way, no sacred land in the entire eastern border would dare to compete with the Ling people. As for the divine palace that suddenly shattered the void, no one would think much of it. They would most likely think that it was a trick left behind by the ethereal Dao Palace for Nianqinyan. Moreover, it was about time for Liang Yi to clean up the eastern border monsters who had entered the mystic realm. The reason why Ling Xiao brought Su Yin and the others here was because he was worried that they would be slaughtered by the former. He had no way to explain Nian Qingyun's disappearance, so he might as well let the world misunderstand that she had perished. In this way, he could use this opportunity to plot against Yuan Yu's sacred land, where Xia Feng was. "Your saint killed my fiancée. Your sacred land has to pay a price, right? Young master, please restrain your grief." Su Yin bowed slightly, but the corners of his mouth curled up inexplicably. She was originally worried about how to snatch Ling Xiao from Nianqinyan. Who would have thought that goddess had perished at such a timely time? "Who is the goddess?" Bai Ling glanced warily at Su Yin, and a trace of hostility suddenly appeared on her face. If she was the sister-in-law that brother Lin she had entrusted before his death, then it was fine. But if she wasn't, no one is allowed to get close to my brother. Of course, Su Yin also recognized this girl. She was the one who had provoked Ling Xiao on the day the mystic realm opened. But Su Yin wasn't worried at all about how the two of them had resolved the conflict. She was just a little girl. How could she snatch her man away from her? "Goddess? She was your brother Ling Zhao's fiancée." Su Yin smiled faintly and straightened his chest. Although she was telling the truth, Bai Ling was shocked when she heard it. "What? Brother? Fiancé? Could it be?" Boom! A bloody aura quietly spread out, attracting the attention of countless people in the hall. No wonder brother looked so gloomy. It made one's heart ache to see him like this. "But who dared to kill my sister-in-law?" "Xia Chun is dead. Don't mention this again." Ling Xiao shook his head, and his expression was still calm. "Young master, the meat is here." At this moment, Yi Shun and the others brought the flood dragon pot over and stood quietly at the side. Ling Xiao just took out a jar of immortal wine and poured it for himself. He drank cup after cup, but today's flood dragon meat and immortal wine were a little bitter and boring. Everyone was silent, and the happiness on their faces gradually turned into depression. Especially Ling Tian, who looked at Ling Xiao with a worried expression. It was common for people to die when fighting for treasures in the mystic realm. But Ling Tian knew that his brother loved goddess Nian deeply. Now that she was dead, his brother would definitely be sad. "Brother, you're always like this. You always suppress your sadness in the bottom of your heart. If possible, let me share the burden with you. Isn't that good?" The banquet ended. Hua Heng arranged accommodations for everyone, but Ling Xiao walked out of the ancient hall alone. He stood at the peak of the Black Mountain and silently looked up at the sky. He was waiting for someone. The space behind him trembled slightly, and then Liang, he walked out of the darkness and stood beside him. "Everything is cleaned up?" Ling Xiao asked softly without turning his head. "My lord, everything is cleaned up." Liang Yi bowed and didn't say anything else. "Have you been to the world above the Shenzhou continent?" Ling Xiao suddenly asked. Liang Yi hesitated for a while and shook his head. "No, the world I came from is above the 9 heavens." "Oh, if I ask you to destroy the Saint sect, how confident are you?" "Destroy the Saint sect?" Liang Yi's eyes narrowed, and he said bitterly, "If it was 1,000 years ago, it would only take a thought. But now, I can't do it." "Is it the shackles of the heavenly Tao in this world?" "It's a shackle, but not the way of heaven. However, my lord, if you know too much now, it will be easy to expose yourself. Once those people sense your divine sense, they will definitely ignore the consequences. In this life, we need to be careful. I believe that one day, the Sky Demon Palace will rise above the universe again. Oh, I want to take a few people out. Next, you can choose some experts from the eastern border and train them in this secret realm. I want an army that will completely obey my orders. They will be the opportunity for the Sky Demon Palace to rise again. Don't worry about anything. Just be careful of the Saint sect." Ling Xiao turned and looked at Liang Yi deeply. Since he once stood at the peak of the world, his means must be incomparable to ordinary experts. Under his training, it would be twice the result with half the effort. "One day, when I rise above the universe and summon the 4 borders, what can the Saint sect do to me? I will change the sky for the demon sun. Wherever the sun shines, the demon is also an immortal." "Yes, my lord." Liang Yi bowed, turned around, and disappeared. It wasn't until he was far away that Ling Xiao summoned the system and looked at the 3 realm seed fragments. "System, how do I synthesize these realm seeds?" The host needs to exchange for a realm seed synthesizing talisman before it can be fused into a realm. Synthesizing talisman? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He opened the Villain Point store and browsed for a moment, but in the end, he didn't see the so-called synthesizing talisman. Damn, this synthesizing talisman can't be exchanged with luck points, right? Beep. Congratulations to the host for guessing correctly, but there is no reward. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth. Sometimes, he had a vague feeling that the system wasn't just a tool. It seemed to have emotions and thoughts. Ling Xiao felt that this thought was ridiculous. When he found the Realm Seed synthesizing talisman in the luck store, Ling Xiao finally couldn't hide his anger anymore. "After taking care of the 3 children of destiny, I finally collected all the Realm Seed fragments. But this synthesizing talisman costs 4,000 luck points, which is more than 2 children of destiny." In view of the host's humiliation of the system, the Realm Seed synthesizing talisman will be removed from the store tomorrow. I hope the host can collect the luck points as soon as possible, or all our efforts will be in vain. F***CK. Ling Xiao gritted his teeth and walked toward the Fire Tribe's sacred palace. After killing Lin Shi, Xia Chun, and subduing Bai Ling, he had obtained a total of 3,000 points of providence. Earlier today, he didn't know if it was Yi Qingchuan or Lin Meng who made a breakthrough, but it helped him get another 500 luck points. If he wanted to collect the remaining 500 luck points, he would have to start with Su Yin. After all, the only children of destiny in the mystery realm were her, Bai Ling, Ling Tian, and Yi Suner. The latter 3 wouldn't be able to provide him with luck points for the time being, but Su Yin, it was time to test his acting skills again. Chapter 323. Ling Xiao walked all the way to the Fire Tribe's sacred palace. At this time, everyone had already dispersed, and the entire sacred palace was extremely empty. Although the Blood Moon Forbidden Zone had opened as he wished, and he had gained a lot from this trip, he didn't feel very happy. As for how to make himself happy quickly, the best way was a rich woman was very good. "Shut the hell up. I just want to improve my strength faster and step into the green wave realm as soon as possible so that I can reunite with Nian Qingyun. Strength was the foundation of a villain's success. The path to immortality was vast, and sadness and happiness were all in an instant. Since it was on this path, everything had its own cause and effect. Why bother to argue? Yin'er, are you asleep? In the Fire Tribe's sacred palace, Ling Xiao stood outside Su Yan's room and asked softly, Young master? The door opened, and Su Yan looked at the young man in front of her in surprise. There was a sickly shyness on her face. It's so late. Young master, what's the matter? In any case, she was also a lady of a noble family. Although the path to immortality was not as restrictive as the mortal world, but at this time, and who was Su Yan? The successor of the Cloud Alliance. Since young, the environment she lived in was filled with ups and downs. Although her talent was not as good as Nian Qingyun and Yi Qingshan, her control of people's hearts was far beyond her peers. Since young, her father had told her that the more you wanted something, the more you couldn't show it. In this way, you won't be disappointed and you won't lose. Ling Xiao was very good and even risked his life for her, which made Su Yan especially touched. But her nature was still a successor of the Merchant Alliance. After experiencing the feeling of being touched and trusting, she quickly calmed down. Now that the trip to the mystic realm is coming to an end, I promised Yin'er that I would give you a good fortune. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, and there was a touch of warmth between his brows. From a moment Su Yan attacked Lin Shi, he knew that this woman was not as gentle as she looked on the surface. In fact, her temperament was far more terrifying than ordinary geniuses. Young master, coming quickly. Su Yan's face was stunned, and she hurriedly led Ling Xiao into the room. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anticipation. She knew that the latter had a spiritual fire in his hands. However, if she wanted him to give it to her, she was afraid that it would be impossible without paying a price. And, Lin, she hasn't shown up yet. I wonder, young master, have some tea. There's no need for that. Yin'er, the spiritual fire you want. Ling Xiao waved his hand, and the green devil ancient cauldron appeared in his hand. The red spiritual fire on Lin Shi's body was sealed within it. This aura, as expected, Su Yan's beautiful face suddenly froze, and the desire in her eyes couldn't be concealed. The reason why she had taken such a huge risk to enter the mystic realm was for a heaven and earth spirit fire. With it, she might be able to live for another 10 to 20 years, but without it, she would only have 3 years at most before she would be tortured to death by the cold poison. There is a heaven and earth spirit fire sealed inside. Yin'er, this cauldron belongs to Mother. Do you have any other items that can seal a heaven and earth spirit fire? Ling Xiao's eyes were gentle, and his tone was somewhat apologetic. Young master, this spiritual fire, I gave it to Yin'er. Didn't I say before that I would give it to Yin'er? Ling Xiao shook his head, and there wasn't a trace of pretentiousness on his face. Since he wanted to plunder the luck points, he had to pay a price. As for whether the heaven and earth spirit fire was meaningful or not, he had already obtained the luck points. If Su Yan still didn't want to submit to him, he could use some other means to make her submit. As for what means, don't ask. If you ask, you'll have to guess. He gave it to me. Su Yan's beautiful face was in a daze. Although Ling Xiao had said that he would find the spiritual fire for her, when she saw the spiritual fire in front of her, she suddenly hesitated. It was too easy. In the end, Su Yan still believed that there was no such thing as fortune that came for free in this world. Benefits were the only criteria for interpersonal relationships. But at this moment, when she heard Ling Xiao's words, some of the things that she had been holding on to suddenly wavered. Young master, after we get out, I'll bring you to the Cloud Alliance. Yin'er, have you forgotten what I said? In my eyes, you are the most precious treasure in the Cloud Alliance. I know that some people might think that I got close to you because of your identity. I don't want to explain anything. Now that Qingyun has just passed away, I really don't have the mood to start a new relationship. So let's do this first. Keep the spiritual fire well. When we get out, find a container to move it away and then return the cauldron to me. After all, it belongs to my mother. Ling Xiao seemed a little disappointed and a little dispirited. He turned around and walked out of the room. 1, 2, 3, young master. Inexplicably, Su Yin looked at the lonely figure, and he felt a sense of oppression that he had never felt before. Sorry, young master. You really shouldn't have doubted you. At this moment, she didn't know why she stopped Ling Xiao. She just didn't want him to leave. It was very contradictory. She knew that she couldn't let her emotions get the better of her. However, her emotions had suddenly overtaken her reason, just like that. Beep. The destined girl is doubting herself. Congratulations to the host for plundering 300 luck points and 3,000 villain points. Oh, Yenner, is there anything else? The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a smile, but his face was full of doubt. He was playing hard to get and retreating in order to advance. Of course, the premise was that he had already known Su Yan's intentions from the system. From the moment he killed the young master of the Gu clan, this girl's mind had undergone a subtle change. Her current restraint was more like a test after calming down. Or rather, she was instinctively on guard. After all, Su Yan's identity was respected. Her background was so rich that it could rival a state, so she never lacked bootlickers. No matter how powerful her background was, it was childish and laughable in front of the Cloud Alliance. Therefore, she probably looked at anyone who approached her with a motive. And what Ling Xiao wanted to do was to make her let down her guard. Everything would naturally fall into place. A heaven and earth spirit fire was priceless even in the Shengzhou. No one could resist the temptation of this divine object. Of course, Su Yin probably didn't expect that Ling Xiao had 3 of such divine objects. Young master, how did Nian Qingyan die? Su Yin suddenly took a deep breath and looked at Ling Xiao with a serious expression. Xia Chun was sinister. He used an extremely evil spell, and Qingyan blocked it for me. Ling Xiao lowered his head, his body trembling slightly, and even his palms unconsciously clenched into fists. At this moment, there was a sinister coldness in his body. But this coldness didn't make Su Yin feel fear and disgust. Instead, it made her eyes gradually soften. She could see that Ling Xiao's heart was hurting at this moment. There was even despair mixed in this pain. Everyone said that the successor of the Ling people was unbridled and didn't have true feelings. But what she saw in this mystic realm was a peerless young master who dared to love, hate, and be righteous. The truth was really only in the hands of a few people. Lord Ling Xiao, I am willing to heal your emotional wounds. Chapter 324. Young master, your heart must be in pain, right? Su Yan's voice gradually softened, and his expression softened. His heart ached for her. After all, Nian Qingyan was dead. She didn't need to be jealous of a dead person. But the more pain Ling Xiao was in, the more it proved that he was loyal to love. In the Shengzhou continent, there were plenty of people who had 3 wives and 4 concubines. She didn't care how many people Ling Xiao had in his heart, but his love for her must be sincere. How I wish that I was the one who died. I wish that she would remember me forever. This way, her people and her dynasty. Ling Xiao bowed his head and his body trembled. After a long while, he forced a smile and said to Su Yin, "All right, it's getting late. You should rest early." Young master, Su Yin took a step forward and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Her beautiful eyes seemed to contain the lake water. Ripples of light rippled, clear and deep. "Yenner, what's wrong?" "Young master, you said that you like Yenner. Is it true?" People who were in love would always ask childish questions over and over again. Most of them prefer to hear vows with their own ears. Even if it was a lie, they would gladly endure it. So, whoever asked first would lose. Haha, I, Ling Xiao, have never lied in my life. Otherwise, let my Tao heart turn into a demon and fall endlessly. Chill. Before Ling Xiao could finish his sentence, Su Yin suddenly covered his mouth with her hand. Her beautiful eyes were glistening with tears. I believe you. I believe you. Young master, I know that Goddess Nian is dead. I don't expect you to let go of her immediately, but let Yin accompany you, okay? No, this is not fair to you. Ling Xiao shook his head, and the sorrow in his eyes deepened. Yin, you are a good girl. Even if I'm not in this world, you can still find a good match. Let me bear this pain alone. Ling Xiao didn't hesitate anymore. He gently pushed Su Yin away and walked out of the room. No, I don't want you to leave. I don't care. I only want you. Su Yin panicked when he heard Ling Xiao's resolute tone. At this moment, her modesty and her probing seemed so laughable. If she lost him, what else in this world would she miss? Su Yin hugged Ling Xiao tightly from behind. He couldn't hold back his tears any longer. I know I'm not as good as Nian Qingyan. I'm not in good health, and I'm not as beautiful as her. But, Ling Xiao, I can do whatever she can for you. I swear I won't doubt you because of anyone or anything. I'll always stand behind you and accompany you. I won't let you be lonely. Beep. Congratulations to host for obtaining 1,000 luck points and 10,000 villain points. Beep. Congratulations to the host for triggering an additional reward. 1 Realm Seed Synthesis Talisman. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a Divine Level Chi Concealing Talisman. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1 drop of Ancient Divine Dragon Blood Essence. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the title of Shengzhou's Perverted Head. Beep. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the title of Shengzhou's First Oscar Best Actor. DF*CKU. Ling Xiao blocked the system's notifications, but he couldn't help but smile. What was the surprise? He didn't expect his acting skills to be so good that he actually got the system's approval. Su Yin, why did you give up so quickly? But it was also true. Su Yin had already shown her submission during the battle with Cho Yi. Now that Ling Xiao had given her the spiritual fire and words of love, she still didn't submit to him. It could only mean that someone wanted to cheat the plot. F*CK. Yin. Ling Xiao slowly turned around. His eyes were red, as if he had just cried. So, he didn't turn around because he didn't want me to see his cowardice. The corners of Su Yan's mouth curled up into a gentle smile as she leaned against Ling Xiao's chest. Give me a chance, okay? Try to accept me. Don't bear everything by yourself. I'll try my best to be your wife and the mother of our child. You really don't care about my heart. Ling Xiao bowed his head, and his tone was guilty. You really don't care? Actually, I care about your family's mind? No, I care. How can I not care? But, young master, compared to losing you, it's not important. Su Yan's hands gradually tightened, as if she wanted to merge into Ling Xiao's body. Oh, Ling Xiao nodded indifferently, but his arms used the same strength and hugged Su Yan tightly. Yin'er, I'm really tired. Young master, then let's rest? Su Yan's voice sounded a little shy and nervous, but there was also a hint of anticipation in his voice. With Ling Xiao's reputation, if her father knew about their relationship, he would definitely not agree. All these years, her father had arranged marriage for her. They were all the young masters of the top holy sects and ancient clans in the Shengzhou. But although Su Yin looked proud and cold, in her heart, she always had an indescribable inferiority complex. Because her life could come to an end at any time, she yearned for a sincere love and a carefree life. However, due to the torment of her extreme body, she could never cultivate, travel, or love like the other proud daughters of the heavens. It was very contradictory. He was clearly surrounded by groups of bootlickers. Her father had given her everything she wanted, but she was never truly happy. Her smile was just F*CK. It was messed up. In short, Ling Xiao had mended a small crack in her heart that had never healed. He gave her hope, selfless love, and a strong sense of security. So, Su Yin decided that she wanted to cook rice. In this way, her father and the rest couldn't object, right? Rest? Yin'er, this isn't good. How can I tarnish your reputation? But before Ling Xiao could finish his sentence, the girl in front of him had already tiptoed and covered his mouth with her red lips, stopping him from speaking. Suddenly, there was a ripple of spring in the main hall. Su Yan's lips were cold, very cold. It was different from Yin Qingyun's. Even after Su Yin left Ling Zhao's embrace with her face flushed red, the young man's face still carried a dazed expression. "Young master, let's rest." "Yin I." Ling Xiao frowned and hesitated. But Su Yin suddenly stretched out her hand and held his hand. "Since I'm willing to follow you and be your wife, I won't regret it in this life. As for reputation, as long as young master Yin is pure and innocent, the Cloud Alliance will stop the rumors." Su Yin didn't say anything else. She held Ling Zhao's hand and led him to the bed. Then she leaned into the young man's embrace. "I know that you still can't let go of her. I just want to tell you that Yin is willing to be honest with you. Yin it will use this life to prove that I'm willing to give up everything for you." Tears gradually fell from Su Yan's eyes and fell on Ling Zhao's chest. It was inexplicably cold. At this moment, she was also shy and expectant. "Young master." Although Yin-er's body was cold, the adorable young master's heart was burning. "Yin-er believes that one day you will feel it. Young master, let me hug you, please. Just hug me." Chapter 325. Young master, Yin-er is so cold. Every night, I can't control the cold. I'm in so much pain that I wish I was dead. In the past, Yin-er was afraid that I would die alone. But now, Yin is even more afraid. "Young master, hold me tight. Just hold me tight. Okay." Su Yan's voice was like a murmur, and there was an inexplicable grievance in her tone. But Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile. His eyes were calm as he said, "You won't die. I won't let you die. At the very least, before your father dies." After he finished speaking, Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked deeply at the girl in his arms. He bent down and kissed her. A soft moan sounded like a gust of wind blowing across the swamp. Instantly, 10,000 layers of ripples appeared. The two who were originally suppressing their emotions gradually took the initiative and became infatuated. In the end, they hugged each other and kissed with all their might. "Young master." Su Yan's face was flushed red, and she was panting. It was unknown whether she was shy or wanted it. After all, her heart had already surrendered, and she no longer had any worries. "Yin-er, the spiritual fire, is domineering. With your delicate body, it will be dangerous to fuse with it. Why don't I try to refine some of the cold in your body? Then, you will have more confidence in fusing with the spiritual fire." Ling Xiao took a deep breath, and his face was solemn and serious. "At this time, you expect a woman to take the initiative? Then you are really a gentleman. I am a villain. Of course, what I want to do is not to use force. I want to teach you honestly. I want to understand your feelings and reason with you. I, Ling Xiao, am the most reasonable person in Xingzhou. If you don't agree, then argue. Refine some? How?" Indeed, Su Yin was stunned when she heard this. Originally, she only wanted to borrow the power of the spiritual fire to disperse the cold in her body. She didn't really want to fuse with the spiritual fire. After all, the power of the spiritual fire was not something that a Paong cultivator like her could resist. If she did that, she would be burned to ashes in an instant. But after hearing Ling Zhao's words, she seemed to be moved. If she could really fuse with the spiritual fire, her cold poison would most likely be completely removed, right? Previously, Lin Shi had fused the spirit fire into his body. When I killed him, I found a Qi method in his Chinquan bag. However, this method is extremely dangerous. With your sickly body, I'm afraid. Yin-er, don't be anxious for now. You need to strengthen your body first. Only then will it be possible to fuse the spirit fire into your body. However, the method I can think of, young master, just tell me. No matter what method it is, Yin-er wants to try it. This way, I can always be by your side. Su Yin was a little anxious, and her beautiful eyes looked at Ling Xiao with anticipation. You have the extreme Yin physique. Previously, I was lucky enough to comprehend the law of fire. It is the extreme Yang physique. I heard them say that Yin and Yang are compatible, perhaps. Ling Xiao smiled awkwardly and seemed to be in a difficult position. I know this method is a little too childish, But please believe me, I'm really not lusting after your body. I just want to give you happiness. Young master, don't say any more. Yin is willing to play this game for once. Su Yin was stunned for a full 3 seconds before she understood the meaning behind Ling Zhao's words. In the end, a trace of shyness appeared on her face. She took the initiative to remove her clothes, revealing her shocking snow-white skin. Yin Ling Xiao took a deep breath, and his eyes flickered with an evil light. The emperor's robe on his body automatically disappeared, and he gently pressed the girl in his arms under his body. Boom! A scorching hot feeling instantly filled the entire ancient palace. A trace of pain appeared on Su Yan's face. However, it quickly turned into a touch of moving shyness. For the entire night, she didn't feel a trace of coldness. The torturous Yin Qi in the past seemed to have been reduced by a lot under the endless collisions. Perhaps it was because she was tired, or perhaps it was because he was there. In any case, Su Yin slept very soundly this time. When the sky gradually brightened the next day, Su Yin opened her beautiful eyes and looked at the young man beside her with anticipation. Young master, this method is indeed useful. It's still early. Why don't we cultivate for a while? The corners of Ling Zhao's eyes trembled slightly. However, before he could refuse, the girl's delicate body suddenly pressed horizontally against his. Her fragrant lips pressed against his, and it was another round of lovemaking. Young master, the cold in my body seems to have dissipated by a lot. It seems that we have to cultivate more in the future. When it was noon, Su Yin sat in front of the mirror and applied makeup. The sickly look on her face had indeed lessened by a little. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He looked at the red patch on the bed, and a soul light flickered in his eyes. Realm seed fuse. Buzz. A strange buzzing sound instantly resounded. Su Yin was startled, and the spiritual energy in her body surged violently. She turned to look at the young man on the bed, dumbfounded. This guy didn't break through, right? However, at this time, Ling Xiao smiled at her apologetically. However, there was a trace of excitement in the depths of his eyes. At this time, a strange golden vortex quietly appeared in his soul palace. Ling Zhao's mind moved, and his soul instantly entered it. Then, the world in front of him suddenly became desolate. What appeared in front of him was a dark world. There were mountains, rivers, lakes, and dangerous peaks. However, it lacked a trace of spiritual energy and a trace of vitality. This is the embryonic form of the world. Ling Xiao raised his head and suddenly waved his hand. A thunder sun stretched across the heaven and earth, emitting a dazzling light. At the same time, at the end of the heaven and earth, the soul-sucking ghost pearl quietly appeared, turned into a blood moon, and slowly rose. The world began to light up, and the darkness was completely dispelled. The sun and the moon complemented each other, and there was a hint of creation. However, what he saw was that this soul sea world was still a desolate place. It seems that I have to find a spirit vein to put in. A trace of understanding flashed in Ling Zhao's eyes. His figure flashed and instantly disappeared from the spot. Miss Su Yin, my clan leader invites you for a meal. Suddenly, a voice came from outside the hall. Su Yin turned around and looked at Ling Xiao. The corners of her mouth curled up, and she directly opened the door. However, when the disciple of the fire tribe saw Ling Xiao walking out with her, his face suddenly froze. Oh no, it was the feeling of being killed. But in the end, Ling Xiao just looked at him calmly and left with Su Yin. At the entrance of the secret realm, Ling Xiao stood at the peak of the mountain. Ling Tian, Yi Sun Su Yin, Bai Ling, and the others followed closely behind him. Today was the day the secret realm opened. They should also return to their own sections. But faintly, everyone felt that sooner or later they would meet again, especially when they saw Ling Xiao standing in front of everyone. Whether it was Ling Tian or Bai Ling, there was a faint trace of anticipation in their eyes. Brother, I will do as you wish and work hard to cultivate. Only then will there be a day when I can stand side by side with you. Young master, you must come back and visit often. Far away in the sky, Yishun's old tears flowed down his face. F***CK. Did I lick young master's boots for more than 20 days for nothing? Why did he take away all the experts from the Fire Tribe and Xing Clan and only leave me behind? Could it be because I am powerful and he want me to guard this place as a backup plan? Yes, that must be it. I miss all of you. I will come back. Ling Xiao waved his hand and secretly shook his head. As expected, villains bear the worship and love that they should not have at this age. Sigh. If he was the son of destiny, at the age of 17 or 18, he would definitely walk neatly wherever he went. Ha push. Buzz. Suddenly, there was a terrifying buzz between heaven and earth. Immediately, the spiritual spiral at the entrance of the secret realm appeared again. Ling Xiao looked deeply at Bai Ling and Ling Tian. The two of them immediately understood and took the first step out. Now, the two of them had their own missions. For the time being, it was better not to expose their relationship with Su Yan. The sound of wind breaking resounded, and figures filed out one after another. However, compared to the liveliness when they entered, there were only a dozen people who appeared at the peak of Tao Comprehension Mountain. Everyone looked at the spiritual spiral that was suspended in mid-air with a complicated look in their eyes. Only Ling Zhao's eyes were clear and cold, without the slightest fluctuation. Wasn't the path to immortality like this? Creation created life, creation died. Fight with the heavens, fight with people. So what was there to be sad about? It didn't matter if it was love or hate. No matter how many people you have met, no one is like me. I, Ling Xiao, will never be defined by others. I only decide the life and death of others. Chapter 326. Young Master, what do you plan to do next? Xiao Tu, Fu Yinyao, and Su Yin stood behind Ling Xiao with a solemn look on their faces. They all knew about Nian Qingyun's death. Even the young master's aura was much colder now. Obviously, he was suffering in his heart. The Yuan Yu sacred ground was in big trouble. You guys go back to the universal demon sect first. I have to go back to the Ling people. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at sect master Tai Xian and Liang, who were standing in front of the ancient palace in the distance. He had to go to the western border, but before he went, he still had to settle some debts. Senior brother Xiao, this is the first 3 moves of the soul sword. Study it carefully. Yin Yao, here are some spirit treasures and pills. You can use them for cultivation. Ling Xiao took out a Qingquan bag and handed it to Xiao Tuesday. Su Yin didn't say anything from the beginning to the end. He just stood there quietly and waited. Thank you, young master. Xiao Tu and Fu Yinyao bowed. Fu Yinyao, especially, looked at Ling Xiao with an inexplicable sense of loss. She originally thought that the young master would take a second look at her after Nian Qingyun's death. But now, she understood when she saw Su Yin behind Ling Xiao. Yes, the young master was now the strongest existence among the younger generation in the eastern border. The divine emperor bowed his head. The girls standing beside him were all the best in the Shengzhou. How could she, a true disciple of a supreme Taoism, be worthy of his attention? Yin Yao, I will leave the eastern border soon. The position of the young master of the universal demon sect will be handed over to you. I will personally send a message to the sect master. Ling Xiao turned his head and looked at the young girl whose eyes were downcast as he smiled warmly. Fu Yinyao had followed Ling Xiao for a longer time than Xiao Tu, and she wasn't forced to submit. Such a subordinate was worthy of the status he deserved. Ling Xiao didn't care about the young master of the universal demon sect anymore. What he wanted was no longer some background or identity, but the power in his hands. In the end, whether it was the enemy of 10,000 or the myriad Tao demon sect, it was just an umbrella that protected him when he was weak. When others heard his name, they felt fear. But once he left the eastern border, this deterrence would disappear. Moreover, this demonic sect was after all his own sect. If they were to fight, they would be the enemy of tens of thousands of people. But to ask him to fight against the saint was a little too much. Supreme Taoist orthodoxy had been passed down for thousands of years. However, no one who could sit on the position of sect master would act according to their temperament. Ling Xiao understood this logic. But if one day Fu Yunyao took the position of sect master, everything would be different. Young master. Fu Yunyao's beautiful eyes narrowed, and her originally depressed mood instantly vanished. It turns out that young master still cares about me. The young master of the myriad Dao demon sect? She didn't even dare to dream of such an honor. Go. Ling Xiao nodded and smiled. No matter how reluctant Fu Yunyao was, she didn't say anything in the end. She flew into the distance with Xiao Tuesday. When the two of them were far away, Su Yin chuckled softly and said, "You are quite concerned about Senior Sister Fu. Since I joined the Universal Demon Sect, Senior Sister Fu has given me a lot of happiness. Over the years, she has been even more loyal and devoted." Ling Xiao smiled faintly and didn't explain too much. Su Yin just nodded, and he felt more and more satisfied with Ling Xiao in his heart. He was affectionate, righteous, and dared to take responsibility for his actions. This was a real man. You should have something to do, right? Then I will wait for you in Enlightenment City. I will take out the spiritual fire and return the cauldron to Annie. Seeing that Ling Xiao didn't move, Su Yin knew what he was thinking. He immediately tiptoed and moved closer to Ling Xiao. I want a kiss. Okay, you go to Enlightenment City first. I have something to discuss with Sect Master Taishian. Ling Xiao reached out and pinched Su Yan's pretty face. The latter immediately snorted and walked down the mountain with an aggrieved expression. My lord. Liang Yi flew over from the void and bowed respectfully to Ling Xiao. Behind him, Sect Master Taishian bowed and didn't get up. Get up, Ling Xiao said indifferently and looked up at the sky. The trip to the secret realm was over. The chaos in the eastern border had only just begun. Now, the younger generation of the eastern border sacred sects and ancient clans were almost all dead. Some people might not be able to sit still. You saw the scenes of reincarnation in the faceless jade wall, right? Liang, he narrowed his eyes and knelt on the ground with a thud. I deserve to die, but at that time, I didn't dare to confirm your identity. So I don't blame you. Let me ask you, did you see Nian Qingyun's past reincarnation? Ling Xiao shook his head and had some doubts in his heart. What kind of method did the Empress of the Celestial Dynasty use to deceive the world and come down with her soul to train her mind? My lord, are you talking about the goddess of the Holy Ji Palace? I saw her, but she didn't reincarnate. She only had one life. What do you mean? This person was formed by a wisp of spiritual soul. She was training in this world and returned from the secret realm. It was destiny. Destiny? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Shouldn't the goddess of destiny be protected by the heavenly path? What was going on? With my current strength, I can't really see it clearly, but I think the problem should be with her body. Maybe it has something to do with her body. Liang, he shook his head. Even with his experience, he had only seen the body of chaos once in 1,000 years. It was said that when this body of chaos was cultivated to the extreme, it could split the sky and earth and form a universe of its own. It seemed that Nian Qingyun's origin was not simple, but he didn't know whether it was a human or a god who wanted to break her body of chaos. Oh, suddenly, the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a smile. It seemed to be a conspiracy. If everything was inevitable, then wasn't this game a little too big? Interesting. It was getting more and more interesting. In this trip to the secret realm, many heavenly talents of the eastern border died. I'm afraid that there will be people who will harm the Taishin Dao sect. You too, be careful. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared from where he was. Now, in the Shengzhou, Liang Yi and Lord Taishian were undoubtedly the strongest. Especially Lord Taishian, who was a 9th-grade divine emperor, could be said to be his biggest trump card. Of course, such a trump card couldn't be exposed easily. It could only be used at the critical moment to turn the situation around. Farewell, my lord. Liang Yi and Lord Taishian bowed at the same time. When they looked up again, the young man was no longer in front of them. Lord Dragon General, this Lord Taishian wanted to say something, but stopped. Liang Yi's expression was inexplicably solemn. I once felt a strange, spiritual fluctuation in the Lord's demonic eyes. I couldn't see through his reincarnation. I'm afraid it was a trick set up by the Lord himself to prevent people with ulterior motives from noticing his return. If it weren't for the Lord, even if he merged with the sky demon's eyes, he wouldn't have been able to open the dark forbidden zone, just like that person before. Liang Yi smiled faintly. His dim eyes shone with a strange golden light. The group of young men I asked you to find can be sent to the secret realm. The Lord said that he wants to train a group of followers. Tell the remaining cultivators of the Xing clan and the Hua clan to hunt them down. After a month, those who can survive can join the Sky Demon Palace and become evil dragon guards. Yes, Lord Taishian bowed, and his figure disappeared in an instant. My lord, you must grow up quickly. Our people are still waiting for the day when you return to the Nine Heavens. At the foot of Enlightenment Mountain, Ling Xiao stood in an ancient forest and looked calmly at Yi Lang, Wunyi, and Mi Yong in front of him. He suddenly waved his hand, and a cloud of celestial light filled the sky. There seemed to be an armor, a staff, and a hoop. When he saw the hoop, Yi Lang's expression froze. He almost knelt on the ground and shouted, "Daddy, I have a few places that I need you to explore and bring back the treasures." Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly. 3 pieces of information instantly appeared in the sea of souls of the 3 people. Among them, there were many mountains and rivers in the eastern border that were marked. It was also the memory that Ling Xiao found in Elder Ling's Sea of Souls. Some of the ancient sites were hidden. It was obvious that they were originally prepared for the Chosen One, Lin Shi. Now, he was not in the mood to explore. After all, he didn't lack spiritual treasures, but he couldn't let others take advantage of them. Moreover, the treasures that could be remembered by Elder Ling were probably not ordinary items. This is a divine-level Qi concealing talisman. It can conceal the demonic aura on the 3 of you. Go and find the treasures. Come and see me again. For this trip, Wunyi will be the leader. If you encounter any demons that are willing to submit, you can also accept them as your followers. Ling Xiao waved his hand and bestowed the 3 peerless divine artifacts to the 3 of them. Wunyi received a staff, Mi Yong received an armor, and Yi Lang received a hoop. Hearing this, the 3 of them bowed to Ling Xiao and turned to disappear into the darkness. The reason why Ling Xiao didn't ask Layered Shadow to accompany him on this trip was naturally because the Thousand Illusion Dao Law was really a wonderful tool to play with people in the palm of his hand. In the western border, there were endless battles. Ling Xiao needed someone who was good at disguising to follow beside him in case of emergencies. As for these 3 demons, even if their whereabouts were exposed, it would only be a distraction. This way, no one would really notice him, a true demon. As the saying goes, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. However, just as the auras of the 3 of them disappeared, a beautiful figure appeared outside the ancient forest. There was a trace of sadness on that enchanting face. Chapter 327. Master, what about me? Shui Yu frowned with resentment. Go back to the Yinfan sacred ground and wait for further orders. Remember, it was Xia Chun who killed Nian Qingyun, and you were almost killed by him. Ling Xiao said calmly before turning around and disappearing. There were 2 divine emperors and 6 divine kings from the Hua clan and Xing clan in his territory. Shui Yu was no longer useful to him. However, since Yuanyu Holy Land was a supreme power, they would need cannon fodder if they wanted to go on an expedition. The Yinfan Sacred Ground was not bad. Moreover, Yuanyu's Sacred Ground's foundation should not be weaker than the Cloud Millet Immortal Sect. The supreme Dao in this area was eliminated, and the Ling clan was the king of the eastern border. In Dao Enlightenment City, Su Yin stood in the middle of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and looked at the middle-aged man who was glowing with health. A trace of surprise appeared on her face. "Father, why are you here?" I heard that you sent 2 divine emperors over and I was worried. So I came to see you. How is it? Yin, did you get the fortune in the secret realm? That's right. The man standing in front of Su Yin was the master of Yunlai Merchant Alliance and the master of Su Clan who controlled the endless wealth of Shengzhou, Su Wenye, third-grade divine emperor. His cultivation was not the best in Shengzhou. However, no one in the world dared to underestimate him. After all, he was a rich father. Could he do whatever he wanted with money? Be more confident, you know? Go ahead, okay? For example, the 2 old men standing behind Su Wenye were both 5th-grade divine emperors. The 2 of them could easily wipe out a first-rate force with just a casual move. They were Su Yan's trump card and the reason why she had never taken Yin Qingyun, the goddess of Dao Palace, seriously. As long as she wanted to, she could kill anyone in the eastern border. Oh, she could not kill sect master Taixian, and Ling Xiao did not want to kill him. She could not kill her parents-in-law either. F***CK. So, she could not do whatever she wanted with money. Father, what do you think this is? Su Yin smiled and waved her hand. The green demonic ancient cauldron appeared in her hand. A wisp of extremely faint but sufficiently terrifying heat quietly spread out. Su Wenye's face immediately revealed a hint of joy. He had no son, only a daughter. In other words, Su Yin was the only successor of the business alliance. Although with his age, it was still far from the time to choose a successor. But if Su Yin died, his Su family's wealth would fall into the hands of others. In these past few years, the Cloud Alliance had exhausted countless spirit stones and spirit treasures in order to find a spirit flame of the heavens and earth, yet they were still unable to do so. She didn't expect that Su Yin would really find her this time. As expected of the head of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets. Before this, Su Wenye had once asked that person to perform a divination. He said that there was a heavenly fortune here, and Su Yin had to go there personally. With it, the Su family would be worry-free for 100 years. Now that they had the spirit fire, although it might not be able to completely solve the problem of Su Yan's body with the wealth of the Cloud Alliance, even if they forcefully extended his life, it would be difficult for Su Yin to die even if he wanted to. Haha, that's great. Yena, as expected, you found it. Su Wenye laughed heartily. Behind him, the 2 god emperors of the Su clan bowed down as well. Congratulations, Alliance Master. Young Miss has obtained such a heavenly fortune. The spirit flame of the heavens and earth contained the origin. If any sect was lucky enough to obtain one, it would either be destroyed in an instant or achieve unparalleled success. If an expert obtained it, he would either be killed or become the person who truly stood at the peak of this world. Who would have thought? Young Miss actually had such luck. Our Cloud Alliance is going to prosper. I didn't obtain it. It was given to me by someone. However, Su Yan's next sentence instantly silenced the entire Spirit Treasures Hall. Especially at this moment, the shyness on Su Yan's face made Su Wenye's face tremble uncontrollably. He asked in disbelief, Yenner, who has such courage to give you such a fortune? It's Lord Ling Xiao. The corners of Su Yan's mouth curled up, and her beautiful eyes turned into crescent moons. At this moment, her sweetness didn't seem to be fake, but this made Su Wenye even more uneasy. Ling Xiao? Could it be the Ling people, that unrestrained little devil? Then what did you use to exchange with him? Father. Su Yin fiercely glared at Su Wenye, and a trace of anger flashed across her eyes. I already said it. Lord Ling Xiao gave it to me. Can you not use the same mindset as you used in the Merchant Alliance on everyone? Gave it to you. Su Wenye was dumbfounded. He had never seen the successor of the Ling people before, but he knew almost all the god emperors in the eastern border. Occasionally, he would hear about Ling Xiao's character and temperament in some occasions. This little bastard even snatched his fiancée's betrothal gift on the day of the engagement. Why would he be so kind as to give a heaven and earth spirit fire to Su Yin? How is that possible? A sinister look flashed across Su Wenye's eyes. Su Yin was easy to deceive. He was the most scheming person in the Holy State. Otherwise, how could he strengthen the Cloud Alliance and become the richest person in the holy state. The law of the jungle was one of the rules in this world. The other was naturally a win-win situation. Ling Xiao definitely didn't give the fire purely to curry favor with Yin. The price was too high. In the business world, it didn't conform to the law of gambling. Therefore, he must have received some kind of reward or promise to do such thing. Yin, tell me honestly, did Ling Xiao do anything to you? A wisp of Emperor's aura quietly spread out. The temperature of the entire Lingbao hall suddenly dropped a few degrees. What did he do? Su Yin blushed even more, but she felt inexplicably irritated. Lord Ling Xiao gave me the heaven and earth spirit fire. Of course, he didn't do anything but love. But last night, she was the one who took the initiative first. If not for that, Lord Ling Xiao would have left. Father, can't you stop looking down on people so superficial? In this world, there's more than just benefits. I believe Lord Ling Xiao truly loves me. I have already pledged my life to him. However, this was done willingly after young master gave me the heaven and earth spirit fire. Su Yin snorted coldly. She was really angry. She knew that if her father knew about this, he would definitely oppose it. That was because he had always hoped that she could marry into the Shenzhou central border so that he could consolidate his business alliance. But I won't. I don't agree. My cloud alliance can buy this heaven and earth spirit fire at any price, but don't mention your marriage with him again. Su Wenye was also a little angry at this moment. This silly girl. Was there any difference whether he gave the fire first or after? Isn't it all because of your background or the wealth of the Cloud Alliance? If he was a genius from the central border, then so be it. However, Ling Zhao's notoriety had spread throughout the eastern border. He was a dissolute person. Moreover, wasn't he already engaged to the goddess of the Tao Palace? And now he dared to pledge his life to Su Yin? It was obvious that he was a scumbag. Unknowingly, Su Wenye's eyes were filled with killing intent. But just as Su Wenye was secretly thinking about how to kill Ling Xiao without making it obvious, he saw Su Yan's body tremble. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face turned even paler. Yin, today, if you don't agree to my marriage with Ling Xiao, I will extinguish this fire and die from the cold poison. Su Yin wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her voice was cold and resolute. Even the expression on his face carried a hint of despair and the will to die. Chapter 328. You bastard! Su Wenye gritted his teeth in anger, but when he saw Su Yan's pale face, he felt his heart ache. Although he was the richest man in Xingzhou, he couldn't do anything about his daughter's extreme body. Su Wenye had watched her suffer inhumane torture since she was young. One could imagine how much pain Su Wenye was in. All these years, he often thought that he would be willing to give up his wealth in exchange for his daughter's healthy growth. But Ling Xiao wasn't a good person. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that. But why did Su Yin ruin her whole life? Alliance Master, you don't have to be so angry. Just when the two of them were in a deadlock, the two fifth-grade divine emperors behind Su Wenye looked at each other and smiled bitterly. What do you mean, old son? Su Wenye frowned and shouted coldly. Anyway, Ling Xiao should still be in Dao Enlightenment City. Why don't you let me invite him over and let Alliance Master take a look? Perhaps he will understand Miss Su Yan's persistence. Grandpa's son, you can't hurt him. Otherwise, Yin will be angry. Su Yan's eyes were cold. Old son nodded and smiled awkwardly. Okay, then I'll have to trouble Old Sunday in Dao Enlightenment City. Ling Xiao walked on the street and looked at the ancient city that had regained its peace. His eyes were still calm. It wasn't until a terrifying divine sense suddenly came from the void that a trace of astonishment surged onto his face. F***CK? Someone dared to attack me in Dao Enlightenment City? An Emperor God? Ling Xiao, our Alliance Master invites you to have tea. An unparalleled force spread out from the void and descended upon Ling Xiao's head. F***CK? Are you sure you're inviting me to have tea? Not inviting me to die. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, and a pair of dazzling lightning wings gradually appeared on his back. Like a thunder rock descending from the ninth heaven, wind suddenly whistled between heaven and earth. However, just as the figure of the celestial arch elite appeared and stepped towards Ling Xiao, a chuckle was heard from the center of the city. Ha ha, fellow Taoist son, don't you feel that you've lost the dignity of an emperor by attacking a junior in my city? Tao, Enlightenment City Lord, dressed in a dark blue Taoist robe, walked over from the horizon and landed in front of Ling Xiao with a smile, blocking God Emperor Sunday. That's right, I'm a villain. If I'm in danger, there will naturally be someone to protect me. Why would I need to do it myself? Oh, so it's the City Lord himself. Why? Does the City Lord know the Ling people? God Emperor Sun's real name was Sun Tzu. He practiced the immovable mountain divine mantra, and his defense was extremely strong. He was the personal bodyguard of the master of the Cloud Alliance, Su Wenye. Even in the Shangzhou, he was a well-known expert. Logically speaking, the Tao Comprehension City Lord, a mere ninth-level divine king, should not have the guts to stop him. However, at this moment, the latter had a faint smile on his face. No, Lord Ling Xiao is our sect master's guest. If fellow cultivator Sun dares to attack him, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave this city alive. Doubt Enlightenment City Lord smiled indifferently, his tone neither servile nor overbearing. When Sun Tzu heard this, a look of anger suddenly appeared on his face. Are you threatening me? What was wrong with this world? Now, even a divine king dared to be disrespectful to a divine emperor? Although sect master Taishuan's cultivation was strong, in the end, he was standing here representing the Cloud Alliance. Could it be that the Taishian Tao sect dared to go against the Cloud Alliance? I wouldn't dare. I'm just stating a fact. Tao Enlightenment City Lord shook his head, a divine light surging in his eyes. It was obvious that he was ready to attack. He did not know much about Ling Xiao. However, today the sect master had personally ordered that the Taishian Tao sect would follow Lord Ling Xiao's lead. The orders of the young master were the will of the heavens. The meaning of this sentence was roughly equivalent to the Taishian Tao sect being willing to die for the young master. The Cloud Alliance indeed had a deep foundation. In fact, a mere third-level divine emperor actually controlled such a huge amount of wealth in the Shenzhou. No one would believe that he did not have anyone supporting him. Therefore, Tao Enlightenment City Lord was also a little nervous to provoke Sun Tzu. However, the sect master's attitude was very clear. Whoever dared to touch Lord Ling Xiao would die. Ha 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 ha. What a statement of fact. I didn't expect that a divine king would dare to speak to me like this after I've been away for a long time. Fine, I'll see if the Taishian Tao sect dares to trouble me after I kill you today. Although Sun Tzu had come to invite Ling Xiao to meet Su Wenye, he understood the sect master's intention. But how could he not understand the alliance master's intentions? Originally, he wanted to use this opportunity to properly scare this ignorant youth. He didn't expect that he would encounter such a reckless, enlightened city lord. Buzz, monstrous spiritual light began to howl above Sun Tzu's head, vaguely forming the shape of a huge mountain. The world was about to collapse, as if it was upside down. All the cultivators in Tao Enlightenment City looked at the falling mountain with a strong sense of fear in their eyes. Is it an illusion? Why is the mountain in the sky? F***CK. Could it be that I'm standing upside down? Isn't that the city lord? Who is that old man in front of the city lord? He seems to be the one who moved the mountain here. He can't be thinking of smashing Tao Enlightenment City, right? Who dares to cause trouble under the sect master's nose? Let's wait and see. The Taishan Tao sect will definitely not sit by and do nothing. If we wait and see, I will really run, brother. Many people looked at each other. They looked at Sun Tzu with respect and fear, but more than that, they were confused. In their eyes, the sect master of Taishan was an existence comparable to the divine master of the sacred sect. Sun Tzu's methods were shocking, but he was definitely not a match for the sect master. How about it, City Lord? If you scram now, I can spare your life. Sun Tzu's eyes were filled with playfulness. As long as he wanted to, he could crush this city in an instant. I said, if you dare to touch the young master, you won't be able to leave this city. The city lord of Tao, Enlightenment City, still did not take half a step back and smiled faintly. In his hand, an ancient sword emitted a mysterious light. The biting cold sword light whizzed out, cutting the space into pieces. You don't know what's good for you. Sun Tzu shouted coldly and pressed his palm down. The world suddenly fell into darkness. The huge mountain that covered the sky slowly fell towards the city lord and Ling Xiao with an unstoppable momentum. Young master, leave first. Go to Tao Enlightenment Mountain. I will stop him for a moment. The city lord of Tao Enlightenment City turned his head and looked at Ling Xiao. However, at this moment, the latter only shook his head calmly. There was even a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. The cloud-gathering merchant alliance? Most likely, it was to intimidate him so that he would retreat and leave Su Yin voluntarily. However, the successor of the cloud-gathering merchant alliance had already submitted. He did not believe that Sun Tzu would dare to kill him. Of course, although a fifth-grade divine emperor was terrifying, if he wanted to leave, he might not be able to stop him. The divine wings of wind and thunder was a peerless Tao artifact. Its power was evident. In particular, he had comprehended both the laws of wind and thunder. When he activated the divine wings, it was naturally twice the result with half the effort. Want to leave? All of you, stay here. Sun Tzu intended to show off. The spiritual light outside his body shot into the sky. The huge mountain seemed to be covered in golden light. It was sacred and majestic, like a sacred object of the nine heavens. However, just as the city lord of Tao Enlightenment City took a step forward, the slowly descending sacred mountain suddenly stopped in midair. Even the cold smile on Sun Tzu's face froze before it disappeared. He raised his head and looked at the mountain above his head in confusion. His mouth was slightly open. Obviously, he did not understand what had happened. Fall! 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 Sun Tzu waved his hand fiercely. However, the mountain did not move at all. Laughter immediately came from Tao Enlightenment City. F*CK. This Sun Tzu got stuck in the middle of showing off. As if he had heard the noise coming from the city, Su Yin suddenly flew out from the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. Behind him, Su Wenye and the other fifth-grade Divine Emperor hurried out of the Spirit Treasure Pavilion. However, in the next moment, the three of them narrowed their eyes fiercely. At this moment, in the sky above Tao Enlightenment City, Sun Tzu raised his head in horror and looked at the mountain that had suddenly split open. Then a palm fell from the sky. It instantly shattered the void and pressed down on him. Chapter 329. Buzz. The sound of the great path suddenly reverberated in the sky. The wind and clouds changed, and the entire Tao Enlightenment City seemed to tremble for a moment. Boundless Tao patterns shone brightly in the palm, and the innate spiritual aura seemed to be formed naturally. Oh no, Brother Sun. Besides Su Wenye, the other fifth-grade Divine Emperor's eyes narrowed. His figure flashed, and he instantly appeared beside Sun Tzu. Spiritual light bloomed from his body, and the shadow of a black tiger appeared above their heads. Murderous intent swept across the sky, and the black tiger roared to the sky. It then turned into a flowing light and rushed toward the palm print. However, a frightening scene appeared. Before the black tiger could touch the palm print, it was crushed by the Tao aura that it emitted. Then, the palm print that seemed to have transcended the great path finally landed on the two fifth-grade Divine Emperors. Poof! Without hesitation, two flowing lights shone in the sky like meteors. However, they were crushed by the palm print in the end, and they fell down heavily. Just as the cultivators in the city were looking at the huge palm above their heads in horror, the sky flashed again, and the palm print and the two Divine Emperors suddenly disappeared. Boom! In the north of Tao Enlightenment City, a barren mountain was instantly flattened. Heaven and earth were silent. Only the smoke and dust that rose into the sky seemed to prove that a shocking battle had taken place here. Although it was shocking from the beginning to the end, Sect Master Taishian had only thrown out one palm. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the black-robed Dao shadow that was flying over from afar. There was nothing but respect in their eyes. Even Su Wenye had a look of intense shock on his face. Sect Master Taishian was so terrifying. The spiritual aura contained in the palm print seemed to have transcended the great path of the universe, as expected of someone from 1,000 years ago. From the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao did not move, and he did not even use any spiritual power. Just now, the moment the great mountain fell, he felt the fluctuation of Liang Yi's divine sense. It was strange, but he did feel it. It seemed to originate from the demonic body, and it also seemed to be a connection of the same origin. However, even though Ling Xiao had guessed that the Lord of Taishian was very strong, he did not expect him to be this strong. That palm strike indeed did not contain the slightest bit of the power of Tao laws, but it was a completely natural state. It was as if he had become one with the heavens and the earth, and the heavenly Tao was within his palm. But if that was the case, how strong was the divine master of the sacred sect? Otherwise, the Lord of Taishian could have unified the Shengzhou. Why would he stay in a corner? Boom! Suddenly, two figures flashed out from the ground on a barren mountain in the distance. Their auras were weak, and they seemed to be in an extremely sorry state. It was especially so for Sun Tzu. His two arms hung limply at his side, and all the bones in his body seemed to have been completely shattered by that palm strike. He was carried by another fifth-grade Divine Emperor as they rushed back to Tao Comprehension City. Alliance Master Yunlai was still here, so they couldn't leave. Moreover, Lord Taishuan's attack, just now, was enough to kill the two of them on the spot. Obviously, the Tao Lord had held back. Sect Master Taishian, you're going too far. Do you really want to become enemies with the Cloud Alliance? Sun Tzu's face was ferocious. The intense pain from his body almost made him lose his mind. How many years had it been? How many years had it been since he tasted such pain? However, at this moment, no matter how unwilling he was, he didn't dare to move recklessly. He could only bring up the Cloud Alliance in an attempt to regain some dignity as a divine emperor. Is the Cloud Alliance surnamed Sun now? Sect Master Taishian slowly walked in front of Ling Xiao. He looked coldly at Su Wenye and Su Yin, who were walking over from the Spirit Treasure Pavilion, and said calmly. At this moment, all the cultivators in Tao Comprehension City were completely ecstatic. Sect Master is too awesome. He suppressed two divine emperors with one palm strike. What do you know? Sect Master obviously didn't kill them. He already left some face for the Cloud Alliance. I didn't expect this Bulsh *T Divine Emperor to still be so arrogant. Bulsh *T Divine Emperor? Brother, you seem to be only in the Xianqing realm, right? So what if I'm in the Xianqing realm? With the Sect Master's protection, how can I cultivate? It's impossible for me to cultivate. The scenery in Tao Comprehension City is beautiful, and the people are kind. Of course, happiness is the most important thing in life. That makes sense. The Sect Master is mighty. Countless cultivators were so excited that they were trembling. Therefore, no matter which world it was, this kind of face-slapping scene was the most touching. Haha, so it's the Sect Master himself. Su Wenye's eyes were gloomy as he grabbed Su Yin tightly. He was afraid that his daughter, who cared about the Cloud Alliance's face the most and had grown up with Sun Tzu, would lose control of her temper and anger Sect Master Taishian. Father, why are you grabbing me? Let go. Su Yan's face was cold as she struggled to break free from Su Wenye's hand. Before the latter could react, she rushed towards Sect Master Taishian. Yinner, don't be rude, however. Before Su Wenye could finish his sentence, his expression completely froze. At this moment, Su Yin didn't even look at the injured Sun Tzu. She rushed to Ling Zhao's side and held the latter's hand with concern. She asked softly, "Young master, are you hurt?" They didn't make things difficult for you, right? It's Yen-Er's fault. Yen-Er is useless. As she spoke, Su Yin actually shed tears of regret. It's okay. Yen-Er, don't worry. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. As for Su Wenye and the others, their mouths had already opened to a strange degree. Their daughter had grown up. Was she not going to stay in the family? Young master, are you frightened? Then, an even more frightening scene appeared. Sect Master Taishian, who was originally dignified and could suppress the world with a wave of his hand, suddenly turned around and faced Ling Xiao. He bowed down. F***CK. What's wrong with this world? Since when did the strong have to bow down to ants? Su Wenye felt that his worldview was shattered. Wasn't the law of the jungle the law of the world? And that descendant of Ling people was just a mere pawn? What did he have that was worth Sect Master Taishian bowing down to? What did he have? Money? Power? Talent? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It's okay. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. An elegant aura flowed out of his body, causing the legs of countless proud girls in the city to tighten. Alliance Leader Su, your imperial dog is causing trouble in Dao Enlightenment City. Today, shouldn't you give me an explanation? Sect Master Taishian stood up and looked at Su Wenye. Although the Cloud Alliance was powerful, but how could such an opportunistic person intersect Master Taishuan's eyes? As long as Ling Xiao gave the order, he could kill this person with a wave of his hand. Oh, it didn't seem appropriate to kill him. After all, he was the father-in-law of the Lord. Haha, this is just a misunderstanding. There's no need to be angry, Sect Master. Su Wenye's eyes were gloomy, but there was a sincere smile on his face. Just now, he clearly saw a flash of murderous intent in Sect Master Taishuan's eyes. Did he really want to kill him? Just because of Ling Xiao? Mas. Young master, what do you think? Sect Master Taishian did not pay attention to Su Wenye. Instead, he turned to look at Ling Xiao, as if he was asking for his opinion. This scene caused the entire Dao Enlightenment City to fall into a dead silence. Ha! The Alliance leader just wants to invite me for tea. It's probably a misunderstanding. Ling Xiao lowered his head and saw the grievance and pleading in Su Yan's eyes. He shook his head slightly. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Su Yan's face. She snuggled into Ling Xiao's arms in front of everyone. I knew it. Young master loves Yan the most. Sounds of people sucking in cold air could be heard from the surroundings. What was this called? A winner in life. A beauty in his arms, and the sect master bowed down. No, a winner in life was not enough to describe Lord Ling Xiao. This was probably the legendary destiny. Young master, you are the mountain that I can only look up to in my life. You are the deep sea that I dare not sink into. You are the unreachable shore in the hearts of cultivators of my generation. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.